Welcome, everybody, to another wonderful and fun-filled episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, and I can't even see myself on the screen because of this. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Tonight's going to be an interesting one. First of all, welcome to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the show where we talk the week's events in geek, whether it be movies, tech, gaming, anime, comics. If it's geeky, we're probably talking about it. And I'm your host, Adam Mickelson. I hope everybody has had a wonderful week. Mine has just been busy as all crap because, school and all the other things that are, baby, and all that fun stuff. So it's been busy as crap, and I've been trying to catch up on things, and I'm behind in reviews and all of that, and people are starting to remind me. I don't need reminding, dang it! You're not my dad! I don't know where that came from. But obviously, I'm not alone in my podcast. I do have a wonderful panel of fellow geeks and YouTubers. We're just going to start from the end here. We have Brinton Volley joining us once again this evening. How are you tonight, Brinton?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm tired. I've been recording and editing all day. I was actually editing right before this as well, but I'm doing pretty good.
Does your little subtitle here hint at what you've been recording today?
Yes, it has.
Oh, I'll watch that.
Yeah.
Just to see what you discovered that I couldn't find.
Let's just say I got lost a lot, and I I have some fun commentary, or at least that's my opinion of it. So I look forward to seeing what's to come.
All right. And then also we are being joined by the Shadow Blazer himself, Alex Short. How are you doing this fine evening, good sir?
Well, it's been yet another very long, tiring week. Glad I finally got my day off, finally. Yay! Tomorrow, anyway. So, yeah, pretty typical week, just still decompressing, I guess, from the last video I did, but still working on something new, hopefully, in the next few weeks.
Decompressing? I haven't watched your most recent video. Decompressing? Did you rage?
No, I didn't rage. It just took a long time to put together. It was
Gotcha.
very, very time-consuming and very arduous.
So much so that it actually took you like an extra week to get Deadpool up on Draken Shadow as well as Zoolander 2.
Yeah,
so
unfortunately I got a little distracted in that matter.
Yep. So, all right, good to hear. And then also we are being joined by Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost, Utah. Romney, how are you doing this fine evening?
Well, doing all right. I mean, today, well, it's been a bit of a mixed bag, but the week's been, well, also a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, first, I start off the week by turning 24, then... Yes, I'm...
And I am once again reaffirmed that I am the oldest fart on the podcast.
Yeah, and so it starts with, just turning 24. I mean, I don't know how it happened, just suddenly snuck up on me. And then... I don't know why, but I just decided to challenge myself to do really challenging things for these videos, and so that's what I've also been doing, is a lot of editing. And a lot of people may think, whoa, was Gods of Egypt really that challenging? No, it wasn't. The Gods of Egypt was challenging for separate reasons, but trust me, once the video I'm working on is up, well, people are either going to be very happy or they're going to want to throttle me.
I will just say this. I mean, I watched your Gods of Egypt review, and I was satisfied not only with the video, but the fact that the next thing on your playlist was the Ninja Turtles Ranga we did, which wasn't a Ranga, which wasn't really anything. It's like, yay! We have a reference from something that was a couple of years ago!
Yeah. My question is are people going to expect us to do that again for Ninja Turtles 2?
Please don't. I can't do poetry.
Well, maybe I won't be as strict with the rules of poetry. It'll just be weird free verse. Maybe as a joke, it'll be that we'll each do a different style of poetry for each one of us, and we'll just see the weird behemoth hydra that we create.
Hey, Hydra. No. Alex, the only thing that we need to say on the matter was, and I'm not meaning to blame Romney, but Romney was the one that wanted to do it. So at that point, it was 2 in the morning. There was no way we were going to get any kind of poetry out. It just wasn't going to happen. So that's just the way it goes.
I would have been very impressed if poetry was produced in an eloquent manner at 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning.
At 2 in the morning in a Denny's. It wasn't, Brinton. It wasn't.
Oh my gosh.
We tried for the first little bit, and then it fell apart.
It fell apart from there because it was kind of one of those cases where we're just like, we're not even all the way through the review. This is actually taking longer than we expected.
It was one of the middle videos because the last video we did was Aldo's like wanting to play devil's advocate, and I don't think he ever released the video. We might have to hound him on it, but he actually tried to do the review from like a devil's advocate point of view, and try to get us to convince us that this was a good movie. I don't even know if he stuck to that viewpoint, did he?
Honestly, it was 2 a.m. at a Denny's. I don't even remember what happened that night.
All I remember is we ate a bunch of breakfast food, and then I went home at 3 in the morning and crashed.
Yep.
So
I probably would have done the same.
Yeah, funniest thing about that.
Yeah,
so
look at that.
Obviously tonight we have quite an agenda to talk about. We have some stories. And the first one that we have tonight is one that a majority of the panel of the podcast... Now, actually, I should probably address this. So, Aldo, unfortunately, is not going to be able to make it tonight. He had a family thing going on, and I guess like a friend's birthday, so he was off celebrating that. So you all can pester him on his Twitter that he missed yet another podcast and that he hates us because he does. No, he doesn't hate us. He's just got family stuff. But this is actually one of those...
He doesn't hate us collectively. That's the thing. He doesn't hate us collectively.
He just hates Adam.
Romney... We'll get there, okay? We'll get there. Please don't feed the rumor mill.
What a
more than it needs to be fed.
Well, we gotta feed more to the fire so that Brenton has more fires to watch.
There you go.
Yay! I'm quite a pyromaniac, so
do you
more
have
than merrier for me. What?
Do you have your walkie-talkie with you?
No.
All right, well then we're screwed. Okay, so we're gonna literally be starting off the tech portion of this evening with some Nintendo talk because, well, a couple of days ago we had a big announcement happen, and that was Pokemon Sun and Moon versions. Generation 7 is literally coming this holiday season, 2016.
Well, we don't know if it's quite Gen 7 yet. It could be Gen 6.5 for all we know.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah, that's the same thing that I've seen circulating too, like 6.5, and I'm just like, it could potentially be a 7th generation, but who knows, you know?
Yeah.
Well, the reason that they're basing it off of 7th gen is very circumstantial evidence because I can't remember the name of the Pokemon in particular, the DLC Pokemon, the Fire Water type, his description actually kind of hints at a 7th generation happening. And then also in the Nintendo Direct, the trailer actually shows a new Pokemon supposedly being developed because you actually get to see like this faint design of a bird. And a lot of people are going, oh, new Pokemon, new generation.
Yeah,
completely discounting the fact that we now have DLC Pokemon. We now have that, people. So in this case, it doesn't necessarily need to be that.
I had no idea that was a thing until this very moment. If to be honest, I had no idea. But it doesn't really shock me with how Nintendo is really trying to push the whole DLC thing. I've been playing Fire Emblem Fates, and within like less than 24 hours of the game being released, it's like, oh, here's all this DLC, and I'm just like, I just dropped $40. I don't have any additional cash to add to this game.
Gee, you're almost having the same problem that I did with, or you're having it with Fire Emblem, and I'm having it with Street Fighter V.
Yeah, although, quick question,
We'll get to that later, people. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, quick question, Britton. Hoshido or Nor?
Hoshido.
I sided with Nor.
Aww. I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's me most night.
I got Birthright because this is my first Fire Emblem game, so I'm like learning as I go, and I know that Conquest is supposed to be more for like experienced players.
That's
so
why I got it.
Yeah, so I didn't want to like rage quit the entire time, so I've been enjoying what I've been playing so far.
My piece of advice: use casual on Conquest. Because there is no way you can get through a level of Conquest without someone dying.
Yes.
Well,
So,
if I
back on
head
topic.
that direction, I will do casual. Thank you.
No. You guys are fueling the Nintendo talk here, but I do want to bring things back. So
Yeah.
I guess the
Pokemon.
one thing that we need to bring up is the holiday 2016 release date announcement. Obviously, it doesn't say what month in the holiday season, but that's fairly soon. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't gotten, if this is 7th generation, we haven't gotten sneak peeks at starters or the area that it would be portrayed in. That's the one of the things that kind of hints at this being 6.5. Is we don't have a new map of an area, we don't have new starters, we don't have any announcements for gym leaders or anything like that. That's why a lot of people I've seen have been debating this as just 6.5. It's going to be it's going to be like Black and White 2, where it's based in a different area of the Kalos region, and you have to go through the gyms in a different kind of order. But we don't know that for certain. I will say that given the logos, I do think that this will probably be Gen 7. I'm just kind of surprised that they haven't utilized their advertising time better. And the one thing that also got brought up when a listener saw this article is, and they wanted to get our opinions on this, the functionality it will have with Pokemon Go. I don't think it will, at least not right off, but anything's possible at this point. It's really a question that they have to answer at E3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of this information and the concerns that are being brought up, Adam, is that I'm sure that if this is the 7th generation, I'm sure that between now and June, there will be more and more talked about and more released. And I'm sure that Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon will definitely get some sort of showcasing or some additional trailers at E3. So I'm sure that we'll learn more by the time June rolls around. Because, it is like at least 7 or 8 more months until the game releases. So,
well, bottom line is that 6.5 or 7, this is on Nintendo Direct's agenda, officially.
Absolutely.
Anything that they announce, that's going to be on their agenda. So, and I'm not knocking either or. If it's 6.5, then that's great. If it's 7, it's great. As far as the Go, the only thing that kind of staggers me, at least as far as opinion, is the Go functionality, because I don't think it will have any, frankly. I think right now the main goal of the Go dev team is to get Go out. So they're not looking to muddle things up with a whole new cast of Pokemon, supposedly. They're going to try and get things out with the Pokemon they already know about. And so, do I think that Sun and Moon will have immediate functionality with Go? Heck no, I really don't. Because they got to get the base client out.
Yeah, and especially given the incompatibility, because Pokemon Go is the second entry of them entering into the mobile market foray. And I can see some functionality back and forth. It just wouldn't be like a case where you'd have a direct feed. Most of what happens, like, say, you catch a Pokemon in Pokemon Go, most of what happens is that maybe your phone will display a QR code that you can scan and then pick up the Pokemon you just caught from the delivery guy that comes to the Pokemon Center. And I think that's the most we probably could get if they decide to do any such functionality.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really see any real connection thing unless they were to create some sort of adapted device, because the wireless communication that a 3DX uses is not the same as the wireless communication that your typical smartphone uses.
Nope, not at all. That's why in a lot of cases I really don't think that there will be any functionality or anything like that between them. I will, however, bounce an idea off of you people, and we're going to get to Alex because obviously we don't have Aldo here, so our Pokemon consultant tonight would be Alex. And that is, I'm actually going to make a justification that this is Gen 7.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned. 2 days before the announcement, I saw Facebook and IGN and Google News get hammered with the concept and announcement that the red, blue, and yellow 20th anniversary virtual console releases were going to be connected to the Pokebank, so that you would be able to bring your Pokemon in them to Gen 6 if you wanted. And I sat there and went, why are they hammering this into the ground? Because that was probably an assumed function. That they were already going to take all this effort to bring these things into Virtual Console titles. And I'm not saying that they're going to update them or anything like that, but when they added the Pokebank functionality, I'm like, why are you doing that? Because that definitely means you would probably have to go into the code a little bit to make that anchor, so that you would be able to do that. And so that's where I actually looked at this and went, this is 7th gen. This is so people, because I love a lot of the advertising focuses where, oh, you remember that poor Mewtwo that you caught and that stays in your little box cartridge and can't ever leave? Well, now you can bring that Mewtwo into 7th gen. That's my justification. It's flimsy. I can already see Romney. It's flimsy. I know it is, but I cannot explain any other better explanation why you would do that kind of functionality to a game that is literally 20 years old. So with that, Alex, disprove me. Just prove me wrong.
I don't know. You got a pretty solid theory here, a game theory.
Damn it! Do me now. Dang it, Alex.
Yeah, I just gotta mention, disprove me wrong. That's a double negative, isn't it?
It is, but let's move on. Don't get me on a grammar kick.
Oh, Brenton's a grammar Nazi.
I'm getting a minor in English, so yes, I more or less could be a grammar Nazi.
What's actually kind of funny is that the grammar Nazi didn't catch me in that. Thank you, Romney. I didn't realize I did that. Anyway, Alex, move on.
All right, so, yeah, you make a pretty compelling case here that Pokemon Bank functionality being updated to connect back to Gen 1. Maybe this is for a Gen 7th release, as we might see with Sun and Moon. I'm still kind of more leaning towards 6.5 because Pokemon Z has been rumored for a while as the follow-up to X and Y. But we'll have to wait and see. I guess it really is a wait-and-see game to this point. Will I be disappointed either way? No, I think it's exciting. Truly, I keep wondering, what more exciting adventures can we make out of Pokemon for a franchise that's been going on so long? It's certainly tricky to keep it fresh and innovative. And, Pokemon team, they're doing their best. Game Freak is finding new ways to make the games continuously interesting. And that's why I'm always excited to see what comes next in Pokemon.
Okay, this is going to offend Pokemon fans here, but I'm going to say it. I don't care about Pokemon. I want me some more Tembo the Badass Elephant. I'm just saying. I need me some more Tembo.
Yeah, the Gen 1 implementation does bring up another thing that I think we might also be seeing. I mean, yeah, the Pokemon Go functionality may be limited, but we might be seeing Pokemon enter into a bit of an era of trans gaming, like where you have different types of games for different types of people of the Pokemon franchise that has various bleed over effects to each other. I mean, not only do we've got Pokemon Go, we've got the great Detective Pikachu that might have some bleed over, maybe some perks people might get, like say, oh, if you downloaded this game, you get some bonuses in your copy of Sun and Moon, or even something you can download into your copy of X, Y, Sapphire, Ruby, or whatever mineral or letter
animal, vegetable, color.
Like mineral, letter, celestial body, elements. But point being, I think
do we have Pokemon A and B? Do we have that yet?
Not yet.
No, that's the joke that I was making about X and Y, is we finally hit the alphabet, they're running out of ideas. Yeah. And then they came up with Sun and Moon.
Well, they already had the alphabet Pokemon with Unknown.
Yeah, the point being, I think we're kind of reaching a point where Nintendo may want to branch out and have all these different Pokemon games that are in radically different genres, having some bleed over to kind of also reinforce that sense of community that they always like to enforce when it comes to the Pokemon games. The whole incentive to trade and battle other players, they just may extend that with saying, oh, well, you don't like battling with Pokemon, but you want to, say, play a mystery game and help, say, a sibling or a child that is playing a Pokemon game. Well, then how about Great Detective Pikachu or the various spin-offs? Oh, you want to play a puzzle game? Here's some bonus stuff you get for playing Battle Troze or Picross.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of wrap this up whole is, unfortunately, as much as I want to say this is Gen 7 or this is 6.5, I do want to re-emphasize to people, we don't know that yet. A lot of the stuff that got shown off in the teaser doesn't really state that it's either. We got a bunch of concept art. We got the possibility of being able to, instead of having Pokeballs, pile your Pokemon into a truck. We got a whole new Pokemon Center design. And a lot of people would take that as, like, that's a new feature for Gen 7. It isn't necessarily, because I believe Black and White 2 had a unique features in and of themselves, so you can't necessarily make that justification right off the bat. I will tell you this, though. This is one of Nintendo's big whammies for E3 2016.
Definitely.
It definitely is. And I'm not saying that they have a whole lot to show for it, for their E3 presence this year. I want some Zelda, but
I want some Zelda too. I will riot if there is no Zelda.
No, Brenton, we don't want Zelda 2. We don't want Zelda 2. We want some more Zelda, but we don't want Zelda 2.
That's not what I meant. You know it.
Yeah, again, don't agitate the grammar Nazi about the different versions of 2, because that's a whole other discussion.
I was reasserting that I'm the grammar Nazi. So moving on.
You were not a grammar Nazi, good sir.
I can be. You just haven't seen it happen. Your sister has seen it happen, good sir. She can attest.
You haven't called out my Buffyisms on the Dragon Shadow stuff, so
that's because they're hilarious. So, all right, we got to move on. So this one is again kind of up in the air because it isn't an official thing just yet, but there is now a crowdfunding campaign for a Jay and Silent Bob video game. I never thought I'd say those words.
Yeah, we may want to explain.
Jay and Silent Bob were done.
Yeah, we may want to explain to people who are listening / watching this who may not exactly know who Jay and Silent Bob are, because a lot of younger people nowadays only know Kevin Smith as that guy who rants about Batman. But what you may not realize is that he's a film director.
Yes. So Kevin Smith is a comedian, but he's also a film director
and writer,
and a writer. And one of the earliest projects that he had as a claim to fame, because I don't think what was the cartoon he did that eventually got a cartoon or eventually got a movie.
Well, it wasn't. Well, I know that the Clerks cartoon came second.
There you go. So
because the first film was very much on like a shoestring budget about a guy working at a convenience store. The conceit was that it was basically the Divine Comedy, but set in a convenience store.
Yeah, but Clerks is like the first time Jay and Silent Bob were legitimately introduced, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing is. A lot of people may think, oh yeah, it's all about Jay and Silent Bob. The thing with Jay and Silent Bob is that they're not actually the main characters of anything. The idea is that these are just two characters that show up in every one of Kevin Smith's movies. That's just kind of the joke, is that it's a shared universe. They just happen to just pop up in every single movie that Kevin Smith makes.
In fact, I don't know the numbers like right off the top of my head, but I believe the most popular film that has involved those two characters was Dogma. So at that point, that's like where a lot of people might know Jay and Silent Bob from, but really in a lot of cases they would know, oh, that's that one movie where Matt Damon was an angel and Alan Rickman was the voice of God, and it's a weird movie, but that's one of the movies that people think about. And they actually did get two Jay and Silent Bob movies. Both, I think, did badly. It's not necessarily the biggest point of Kevin Smith's career, but the two characters have earned an adorable little cult following, and a lot of people, I guess, have been asking for Kevin Smith to branch out to video games with Jay and Silent Bob. And in this case, we actually have, I don't know if it's the actual studio's name, Fig. Or no.
That's the crowdfunding platform.
That's the crowdfunding campaign. The company is Interabang Entertainment, and they are the ones that are putting up the crowdfunding campaign for Jay and Silent Bob Chronic Blunt Punch. So it's going to be a classic beat 'em up involving Jay and Silent Bob.
Interesting.
I'm not excited for this. I actually thought Jay and Silent Bob were a dumb little gimmick, personally. I hate to be one of those guys. I wasn't a fan of the two back in the day. Clerks was funny, but not because of those two. And I would also dare say, like, a lot of Kevin Smith's work that hasn't involved the guy who plays Jay, I've appreciated more. Like, for example, I love his little role in the 2003 Daredevil, where he is the autopsy guy, and he is doing an autopsy of a cane. Yeah, you heard me right, people. Go watch that movie. It's not as bad as you might think.
Yeah, I mean, well, watch the director's cut. The director's cut
Yes.
better,
Yeah.
slightly better. It includes some scenes that you see Matt Murdock act like Matt Murdock, but it's not perfect, to say the least.
Yes. No, it's got problems.
It's a diamond in the rough film, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, again, Michael Clark Duncan, absolutely amazing as Kingpin. It's just, yeah.
So, we already know Romney knows who Jay and Silent Bob are, but I'm curious, Brinton and Alex, you probably would be in the age range that maybe you wouldn't know them. Because by the time you guys were in high school, their last Jay and Silent Bob movie had come out and done badly.
Mm-hmm. You know, for me, the only reason I kind of know Jay and Silent Bob was because I really got into those VH1s. I love the X decade, and I think it was may have only been like the 90s where Jay and Silent Bob were doing like a bit on those shows. So that's more or less where I know Jay and Silent Bob from. Was those VH1
but not
specials.
because of popular culture.
You're right, not really because of seeing their movies or anything.
Yeah. Brinton, what about you?
My only exposure really was the article and the material I was finding on the internet about them today in preparation for now. and listening to what you all have been saying about it. So I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, oh, okay, like, you know, it sounds all interesting and stuff. And so, I mean, if there's, like, the only thing that I can really say is if there's fans of these two characters and, you know, they're participating in this funding and really want to see this game come to fruition, good for them. But, yeah. I mean, it's not something that completely interests me either.
It's one of those things that actually, like, because, again, I'm not a Jay and Silent Bob fan. I'm actually kind of happy that Kevin Smith found fame outside of Jay and Silent Bob, because in a lot of cases, like, his podcast is probably one of the more premier geeky podcasts. The fact that he is able to say the things about Batman v Superman is awesome. But I'm really happy that he didn't get anchored into that whole concept. Well, now he's anchored again, but because he had to give the rights to Jay and Silent Bob. But it is one of those things where in the aftermath, I'm glad that Kevin Smith is where he is right now. You know? Do I think that we should get a Jay and Silent Bob video game? I'm actually kind of surprised that we found material for a video game.
I'm just surprised it took.
It's a beat 'em up. I mean, I'll give him that credit because beat 'em ups don't need to have a whole lot of story, but there isn't a whole lot of material for Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, well, they made games out of far less material. Let's face it.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean,
it really seems like something that would have came out in the '90s for Nintendo. It really kind of does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they were able to make a video game based on Home Improvement, they can make a video game out of almost anything. I'm surprised nobody's made a cell phone game based on the Snuggie yet.
Well, and let's just
play it.
Because I can honestly say this. Jay and Silent Bob is pretty much the equivalent to late 90s, early 2000s people that Beavis and Butthead were to my era, except Beavis and Butthead was funnier.
Well, the better comparison, at least in my mind, is not so much Beavis and Butthead. I'd more compare them to, say, Cheech and Chong, almost.
Something like that,
part of the whole thing is that they are supposed to be kind of like the laid-back stoners, so they're more or less... They're kind of like more nihilistic versions of Cheech and Chong, at least based on my understanding. But again...
Or another one that I've heard that people have compared is Harold and Kumar, I think.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty close one.
Is that, am I saying that one right?
Yeah, Harold and
yeah.
Kumar.
Because I don't know them. But yeah, this is happening, and you guys can go to the Fig campaign. Currently, we did get this via a listener request, and the listener actually thought this was funded. It is not. It is like 1/4 to its $400,000 campaign. It's about $116,000 in. And I believe its deadline was coming up pretty soon. But yeah, I mean, if it happens, then good on you guys. You guys funded it. Yeah, it's 28% left, and it's got 32 days. So that tells me personally it probably might not happen.
I don't know. 30 days. 28%. 28% left?
No, 28% of the goal has been filled. So they have about 115,000.
Oh, yeah. And it does seem kind of grim.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
that's the grim.
There you go. We have covered this. Now the next story that we have is going to take up some time, and I'm actually kind of glad that the entertainment portion this week is kind of light, because the next two stories that we have for tech are going to be the night, roughly. So
most likely.
So I think I can officially say we have found our Romney's War for this year. So Romney's War happened 2 years ago, and then we had Konami Gate, and now we have Where's the Fair Use? So Where's the Fair Use has come up quite a bit. I don't know about you guys, but it's been brought up on my channel quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
In the fact that not only is there now a petition on change.org, of course Alex found that change.org petition. No, I think it was Aldo. I think that found it. But
it was Aldo. I didn't find it.
Actually, I was the one that found it because I was the first one that signed it. I was the first one that I wasn't the first one that signed it, but I was the one that found it because a friend of mine who's also a YouTuber had signed it, and so I signed it. But then I figured, this is probably going to get sent to Adam. I should probably put it to the page.
It was, and it got sent with, have we signed it? I can honestly say I have not, and the main reason that I haven't, before people jump down my throats, is very simple, and my panel can actually state this about me. I very rarely do if I'm going to stand up for something and do a call to action, I'm going to actually have an action, and I don't go down the direction in a lot of cases that I consider to be a non-action, which this petition to me still feels like. Because again, it is basically handing YouTube a piece of paper that they can ignore at any given moment and just choose to dig it up 6 months later and go, yeah, that happened. And so, again, I hate to be the mean guy here, but I consider that a non-action. An action to me in this particular case would be, well, to quote Eric Cartman, screw you guys, I'm going home. That would be an action there. A petition to me is more, and again, I'm not trying to insult people. I'm giving you my frame of view, and that is that it is a non-action. It is basically doing nothing. And I don't think that helps, especially with this particular moment.
Yeah, though my counter-argument to that, because speaking as someone who did sign the petitions, at least is one of the better petitions that change.org has been used for, because it's not so much a petition to YouTube to change their copyright system, it's a petition for YouTube to give us some answers and explain what the hell is going on. Because for the most part, they've been silent. And that's what the petition is about, is saying, hey, YouTube, at least issue a statement about acknowledging that you know what is going on, because we've heard nothing, and the only reason that some people have been getting their stuff reinstated is because we've been making enough noise. And so the reason I signed it is more to kind of show that this isn't going to go away anytime soon until YouTube starts talking, until they start actually acknowledging that they're hearing us and explaining what the hell is going on, because that's the big source of frustration, is that we are hearing nothing. It'd be one thing if they issued a statement, but that's the thing, they haven't even issued a statement. And so, as someone, that's kind of the reason why I signed it, is just not so much because I'm expecting it to actually make any change, but it's more kind of a commitment to myself and to just kind of remind myself of this isn't going away anytime soon.
Yeah, and I don't look at it that way. I don't look at it at putting my name on a piece of paper as saying I'm not dedicated to the cause. I don't look at it that way. I just would look for other ways to be more active in that regard. Action to me in this case would be to make my own video. So at that point, that might be what I do.
Here, so.
And and again, I'm not insulting the people who signed the petition. You guys can do whatever you want. I would just go my own way with it. Alex, did you sign the petition, or do you have other means that you're planning on bringing up with this discussion?
Yeah, I signed the petition because I'm with Romney, but, I know this is a piece of paper. YouTube can just as easily ignore it, but it's something that I can do. Maybe it's not the most active thing, but, I'm a very small YouTuber, pretty much in comparison to a lot of the other biggers out there, so me making a video isn't going to make a huge deal about anything. It's not going to spread the message. It's not going to rile people up, like when Doug Walker, Alpha Omega, or I Hate Everything, or, if people started like PewDiePie or Markiplier started making videos about this, which they really should, because they probably won't because they're YouTube Red clients now, right? It's something that I can at least do because, well, obviously I don't have money. I can't, get a team of lawyers together and go after Google. So it's something to do at least. It's something
I also wouldn't rule them out just yet, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I wouldn't rule out the top YouTubers just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Brinton, have you signed the petition, or what is your viewpoint on where's the fair use? Because you're new to this as far as the podcast is concerned.
Yeah, I did send a petition, and I do agree with what everybody has said so far in it regarding, it is a piece of paper that me signing it really may not do a whole lot, and just kind of like what Alex was saying, it's not that I have this huge, massive fan base, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to rile the gays, and we're going to get on YouTube's case about this. I know that me making a video probably is not going to do much either, but that in the end, something does need to be done. I was actually taking a few notes on some of the videos I was watching today because I hadn't really taken a look into it until today, and I hadn't really thought about it because a lot of the content that they were talking about in these videos were mainly dealing about movie reviews and how it was affecting their getting their money from it, and just essentially just people hounding on them for movie reviews and stuff like that. And so one of the biggest things that came to mind to me was how is this going to affect me as a Let's Player? Because there's like a few videos of mine where they've put hey, you can't monetize this because this is a copyrighted song, and I was like, okay, I don't care. I'm not making money anyway from YouTube. I have a full-time job that pays my bills, so I don't care. But I mean, you think in the back of your mind, what if I get a bigger fan base? What if I get to that point where I get a little extra money from YouTube? Yeah. How is that going to affect me? Because already we've seen this with Nintendo harping on a lot of popular YouTubers with, saying, hey, you can't do this with our content. And a lot of YouTube creators having to go to, working personally with Nintendo to be like, hey, my content is Nintendo. If I can't earn money based off this content you've put out there for me to share with the rest of the world my experiences with it, then how am I supposed to make a living? So, I mean, I think to myself, what happens if it gets to the point where all the other big companies like Ubisoft, Sony, Microsoft, all of a sudden is like, hey, wait a second, y'all can't be doing this. And it's like, well, we have been, people have been for years and years and years and years. What, are you going to really start that fire now?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is while this whole thing is going on unanswered, the perfect example here is you got Nintendo content. I know you do, Brinton.
Absolutely.
Me and Alex on our separate channel, which I don't plug enough, has Nintendo content on there. Romney has. I'm trying to think. Have you done a Nintendo review?
No, and that's because I'm too afraid to because of some of the crap they pulled. Because I've wanted to. I mean, not necessarily straightforward reviews, but I've wanted to do retrospectives. But it's more, I just don't want to deal with all of that crap, and so I haven't. I mean, that's why I've been limiting any game stuff the things that aren't Nintendo. Like, the closest I did was a review of Ace Attorney for the 3DS, and even then, that was just me sitting in front of my backdrop talking, because I didn't have a way to capture footage. And even with my J-Stars reviews, it's just, I want to, but I don't want to risk it, because it's too much BS that I would have to deal with.
That's one of the reasons that this is such a big deal, is, we literally have companies that are not being checked at all for putting up their claims. And look, I've had one claim in my entire channel which was founded and justified, and it was from Blizzard Entertainment. And I handled that as gracefully as I could, and thankfully I got a message back from Blizzard saying, dude, it's okay. We just want to make sure that, you're not one of the other 50 bajillion YouTubers that just put up our panels for BlizzCon and not give a crap. I got it pretty easy, because Blizzard is very forgiving when it comes to the YouTube community. In fact, they support the YouTube community. But then you look at a company like Nintendo that literally doesn't, or a company that literally goes 50-50 with it, like Bethesda. That's how it could be, because there's no checks on their end. They can continue to do this, and they can continue to hire companies to specifically do this, so they don't have to.
Yeah.
So that's why it needs to stop. And in fact, just kind of move the story along here, that actually kind of happened again this week, because people have been following this story that, I can't remember I think it was Wednesday night when Aldo actually came to us with it, that Team 4-Star, their YouTube channel, had been anonymously shut down. And here, like, I get that was a difficult thing for Team 4-Star, but you know what? Their video actually makes a point. They had a website. They had a deal with Screenwave. They were covered. There are a bunch of other channels that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
That this literally could have just shut down their livelihood. Mm-hmm. And, coming back to the examples, let's just say, for the sake of argument, Nintendo decided to go all hardcore and immediately start counteracting some of this stuff. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Jay Witz would be shut down. Tamashi Hiroka would be shut down. The Dex would be shut down. Peanut Butter Gamer would be shut down for any Zelda month thing that he has ever done.
Which he does every year.
Far From Subtle would be shut down because they've covered plenty of Nintendo games on theirs. Me and Alex's channel, Dragon Shadow, would be shut down because we've only covered a few Nintendo games. That's how scary this prospect is. Until companies are actually put into check and saying, they actually have to stand accountable and give reasons for why this Let's Play should be going down, which they don't have to do at this point. They have no accountability whatsoever. It's all on the YouTuber to do that.
And that reminds me of another thing that the Team 4-Star video brought up, because I like how they didn't necessarily jump on the whole, yeah, we're angry. So they did bring up some other valid points. One is that a lot of these fraudulent claims and some of these claims are also coming from companies outside of the United States that may function under different copyright laws. I know Anime America is a good example where a lot of her videos kept getting blocked by Yamato Animation, which is basically an anime distributor based in Italy. And the only way for her to stop getting the blocks was to block her videos in Italy, which she didn't want to do because she knows she has some fans in Italy. But that's another thing YouTube needs to also address, like saying, hey, if you're going after these YouTubers, you have to keep in mind that here in the U.S. we have these laws in place. Mm-hmm. And some countries have similar copyright laws, but some do not. I know England, their copyright laws, they're not necessarily more strict.
Which is funny, when you look at that international audience, some of them actually cite U.S. fair use in their stuff. I've seen that happen numerous times.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because with Team 4-Star in particular, I mean, one of the first things they first had to issue was saying is like, no, Funimation had nothing to do with this. Please don't bother Funimation, because in their update video they explained that it was Toei, the studio that was producing the show in Japan, that had their channel taken down. So this wasn't Funimation. This wasn't anybody in the U.S. This was Toei, based in Japan. To use my own personal example, my first episode of From the Shelf got blocked by TMS, which is another company based in Japan, and that's another bigger issue, is that YouTube needs to learn how to negotiate with these companies based in other countries to also deal with the issue of having companies in countries that don't have the same copyright laws as the United States, not necessarily having the power to yank videos across the entire World Wide Web, I mean, in the past, granted, the policy did kind of suck. In the past, I did like how YouTube had the thing where it would block videos in certain countries for that reason. Yeah, it kind of sucks, but at least there it's a case of, okay, well, it's blocked in these countries for these reasons because of these jurisdictional laws. I mean, granted, it's very reminiscent of China during the days of imperialism, where where people were only subject to the laws of their home country and not the laws of China, but at least it didn't make it as intrusive as much, because it meant that any of us in the U.S. didn't lose our entire channels.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I also like that both Kaiser Neko and Lenny Pator brought up is that, well, it's something that we may even need to look at the copyright laws here in the U.S. because, well, although there are some protections there's a lot of things that have developed over these past decades that the original United States Copyright Act and even the Digital Millennium Copyright Act weren't prepared for.
They still haven't technically answered the whole internet equation part of that.
Yeah,
and that's one thing
trying.
that actually has to happen in order for any of this to get going.
Yeah, because even with fair use, it's one of those things where everyone's like, oh yeah, but fair use protects everything. But no, the key thing to remember is that fair use is a defense. It's a defense. It's an argument that you can make if it actually goes to trial. And that's the other big thing, is that fair use only applies as a defense. Granted, it's something that, according to Lens versus Universal, that a company has to consider before issuing a takedown on any video sharing site. But there's still a lot about the current laws in place that need to be reworked because of this brave new landscape we have called the internet.
Yeah. Now, one thing I actually will say that was, at least just to kind of move this along, because this is a big thing, and I have a feeling it's going to be brought up all year. One thing that actually made me hopeful, and actually I would consider it an action, was funniest thing how I think it was Brinton that brought up one of the big YouTubers, where we thought that they wouldn't get involved because they have the YouTube Red contract now. Well, funniest thing, when I actually went back and watched some of the Team 4-Star Twitter action that was happening, plus the Nostalgia Critics original review, a popular YouTuber actually had comments on them.
Huh.
And that was Markiplier. So first of all, I would like to step out and personally thank Mark for stepping out and speaking his mind, because you're exactly who was it that actually said it? Was it Alex?
Yeah, it was
that brought
me.
it up? You're exactly right. He's under contract. He can't do it. He's got millions of YouTubers now, but he's the guy that should be doing it. Him, like the four biggest YouTubers, PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, I know it has over millions, and then you also have like Cinnamon Toast Ken, you have Game Grumps. These are the people that actually could get that action done. Because they literally have 5, 8, I think one of them's at 7 million subscribers on YouTube. If they were to up and walk out and say, we're going to Screenwave, that's the ball game, people, at least from the video game end. Because then at that point, they have enough clout and enough subscribers that those subscribers are going to start going. That's an action, as far as I'm concerned. So I will at least compliment Markiplier for taking that step and potentially putting himself at risk on that. I actually, because of Markiplier's message on those, I looked for PewDiePie. Because you know what? If PewDiePie responded, I'm not a fan of PewDiePie, but if he did, that's the ball game right there. Because I think he's got like what, 10 to 12 million subscribers. All of them are seeing his comment, and at least half of them are agreeing with it. So at that point, that's a big step, and so I will compliment Markiplier for stepping out and saying that this was crap, and that YouTube needs to actually step up and at least give an answer.
Yeah, and speaking of PewDiePie, that does remind me of another thing I did bring up, that there is also other issues that YouTube's currently doing and how they're not exactly enforcing all of their community guidelines. Because the YouTube user, Grade A Under A, made a 2-part series of videos explaining how, in addition to all the copyright problems, there's a lot of people on YouTube getting away with a lot of stuff that, when you look at the fine print, is in clear violation of the YouTube community guidelines, and they're not being punished. And that is also ridiculous. You have the good guys being punished, even though they're doing everything right, but then you have prank channels and reaction channels that literally just upload the entirety of a video, which is something that can be argued is in violation of copyright law, not having anything happen to them. And that is also another problem that YouTube needs to answer for. I mean, especially when you have some YouTubers that have done criminal activities and have uploaded it to YouTube.
See, and that's another thing that absolutely, and this would also be considered an action as far as I'm concerned, because, well, we can't actually step up and say that YouTube needs to do this when there is a good portion of us, and I hate to admit it, I have subscribers that have done this, and I've had to take them off, but they will put up like full-on movies, full-on anime episodes, full-on music videos that weren't their right to do so. They will manipulate music, but basically put it an octave higher or lower in order to avoid copyright. That, unfortunately, like as much as I appreciate those people, that does not help the case.
Nope. And it also just goes to prove that you can't automate everything. And that's really the biggest problem here, is that Google is trying to automate the entire process. But the thing with computers is that they're kind of stupid, is that if there's one thing wrong with the program, I mean, to use Mass Effect as an example, you've got the Geth, and the whole thing with Legion explaining that it's not they're functioning on a wrong equation, it's just to them it's a completely different equation, that's why the Geth are doing what they're doing. That's the thing with computers, that's the thing with programs, is that if there's just even one thing, even if one line of code isn't entered the way it needs to be, the whole thing can go tits up.
It really can, and that's why we've been asking for actual people to be responsible. And a listener actually brought up an interesting argument that could be made when we talked about this the first time, and that was, well, what you're basically asking is for Google to spend millions of dollars to hire lawyers to be able to do this. And again, we're not asking them to hire lawyers. At the very most, we're asking them to hire a lawyer, maybe 2 or 3, and then hire a bunch of other people specifically to watch videos and see whether or not that copyrighted content is in there. And then to consult with the lawyer's basically the management in this, and say, is this enough of a flagrant violation that we actually need to take some action?
Yeah,
and then the lawyer needs to say yes.
Yeah, yes or no. And the thing is that
we are actually saying Google needs to spend some money here.
Yeah,
and that's not a horrible thing, because frankly, I'm not going to say they inherited this. When they purchased YouTube, this became their thing.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that it's the people they would need to hire don't need to watch every single video uploaded to YouTube every single day. You would just need a human element to come in and be an arbiter when you have someone file a copyright claim, and then you have, I mean, you don't even have to review any individual copyright claim. You just would have someone review all the disputes, and then you'd have someone come in being the arbiter saying, okay, was the claim warranted? Does the person disputing it have a leg to stand on? And that's all they would have to do. I mean, yeah, that's thousands of videos every single day, but you need that human element because, well, you have things like different countries having different copyright laws. You have things where somebody making a false copyright claim when they don't actually own the rights to it. I mean, to use Harmony Gold for an example, say they wanted to go after, let's say Studio Nue uploaded a video promoting some late Macross product, and Harmony Gold, because they completely lost their minds, decided to flag their video because, like, oh, well, we have the rights to Macross in the United States. You need people to also sort that complicated crap out.
Yeah, and basically, unfortunately, this is why it would need to be like a couple of lawyers, because some of them would actually have to play mediator to these big companies and say, look, this guy does not have as much of an audience as you might think he does. This does not really affect you. Because in some cases that's the case, and companies blow this out of proportion, thinking that this is going to be the end of them. I mean, I've literally seen companies make the same arguments Lars Ulrich was making back in the day for Napster, that were overblown and out of proportion. And granted, they got him his point across, but this is a bigger company doing that, and so it just doesn't come off the same way. So I can already see the confusion on Alex and Brinton's faces.
I know what Napster
I have a feeling that average listeners are going to have that too, and we actually are going to put up these videos. So on Facebook, we will put up the Team 4-Star reply video so people can watch it. I will put up the original Nostalgia Critic video, and then also the Grade A Under A is going up on Facebook tonight. And I looked for part 2. I don't think it's out yet.
It is out. It is out already. It's just It may not be. It's pretty much you have one video that says like everything wrong with YouTube copyright part 1, and then the second one is called the community guidelines. So the second one doesn't really deal with copyright per se. It's dealing with all of the other community guidelines, such as no nudity or sexual content, violence or gore, spam, and basically going through all the other community guidelines. And well, I gotta applaud Grade A Under A. I mean, yeah, he can't draw worth crap, but hey, he makes some valid points.
Maybe that's kind of the. I mean, the animation just reminded me of that one guy who does like, so you want to do YouTube or so do you want to do Facebook?
Oh yeah, it's very similar. Well, it's very similar to Ev Money TV. It's just he's got the large chin and the British accent, right?
Yep. So we actually need to move on to the next one so that I can piss off even more people on the internet. Final thoughts from Brinton and Alex on Where's the Fair Use?
Yes. In my defense, I was not confused. Okay. I was following that quite well. I deal with attorneys like for 40 hours a week, so I've learned a lot of like legal lingo. So I was following that. But besides that, in defense, final thoughts. I look forward to kick back with some popcorn to see what happens and to pretty much entertain myself, enjoy the show, and I hope something gets resolved from this. Does it mean that there's going to be a solution by the end of the year? No. If Congress has to get involved in some way, really going that far to try to amend laws that are already in place, this is going to take quite some time. Yeah. It's an election year in the United States. It's not going to be taken care of right away.
But even then, that's a nightmare scenario to me.
Yeah, I mean, especially
Congress is not going to come down on a YouTuber's side. They really aren't.
That's the thing. But to counter that, we were able to stop SOPA, so I wouldn't write that off completely. But I'm with you, Adam. That is like a nightmare scenario, especially when you have people like Ted Cruz saying, "Oh, net neutrality is the Obamacare of the internet."
Oh. Alex, final thoughts on Where's the Fair Use?
Well, I too must also submit my defense that I was not confused. I followed you fine.
My apologies. I apologize.
I know what Napster. Yes, I know what Napster is. I'm not that old. Come on.
Alex and I are going to like.
Or rather, I guess I should say I'm not that young because I should know what Napster is if I'm old. Yeah. Whatever. Either way, yeah, you guys have pretty much said it. You've even said it to my ideas. Yes, you don't need a team of attorneys for this. You don't even need to watch all the videos all the way through. You just need to look at maybe 3 minutes of a small video and say, okay, is this person making a review? Criticism and commentary? Check. Fair use? Check. Next video.
Yeah, this isn't as big a task as I made it out to be. Like, they don't need to watch from minute 1.
Yeah.
You can watch a couple of minutes and go, this is what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, if the title, because that's what you have to do. If the title says one thing. If it says review and title, okay, does that title hold true into the video? It does. Check. Skip about maybe 5 minutes in just to make sure it's not a red herring or something to throw a watchdog off. Still meets the guidelines. Check. Simple as that. And you're right. This is probably not going to be a quick fix. This probably will take some time. Could be a year. Could be many years. It could even, yes, unfortunately, come down to either litigation or legislation. It's just a big wait and see. Let's hope something comes out of it, at least one step at a time.
Yeah. So, again, I'm going to link these videos up. I would actually dare say, like, if you want a basic understanding of what this whole situation is, go watch the Nostalgia Critics video. He goes into detail on the matter, because I have gotten those other people going, well, what is this? Where's the fair use? And why should I care? And here's the thing. YouTuber and non-YouTuber alike, you should care. Because this affects our content. This affects this podcast. So at that point, if you wish to support this podcast, that's a thing. I'm not coercing you. I'm just saying the facts as they stand.
Yeah, we're only bringing you to the water, people. We can't make you drink it.
Exactly, and we're not going to make you drink it. That has to be your own choice. So at that point, I think we've hammered this enough. Let's talk about some damn Metroid already. You cheer, Brenton. So
that's because I'm already kicking back, looking forward to what you all have to say before I get to put in my thoughts.
Yeah, thing is,
because I've already done that all week.
Yeah, the thing, people, to kind of give you an idea, when this story was posted to our Facebook page, it started a straight-up comment war between all of us panelists.
2 panelists in particular, and one of those panelists isn't here. In fact, I feel kind of bad because I feel like I drove him away.
You did. You drove him away, Adam. You drove him away because you just couldn't understand.
I'm sorry. I'm an old fart. Does that make it any better? So the story in particular, we actually put it up on Facebook because I wanted to get you guys' opinions too, which was Ronda Rousey has come out, as she usually does, and, somebody gave her the question of, who would you like to play, and she actually did say that she would like to play Samus Aran in the Metroid movie. Now, to my knowledge, there isn't a Metroid movie in the works. The last thing I'd heard was John Woo's rights to a Metroid movie had fallen off years ago, and nobody had ever picked it back up again. And so Ronda comes out, and this shows my lack of knowledge with Ronda Rousey. I guess Ronda Rousey's like a very, very big geek. Somebody actually sent me a picture saying, you don't realize how much of a geek she is, and actually showed her in the World Wrestling Entertainment ring with a Vegeta t-shirt on.
Wow.
Now, to me, that doesn't say a whole lot, because DBC is like pop culture, as far as I'm concerned. Like, It's Over 9,000 is an internet meme, and that's what the t-shirt was. It's over 9,000. So, at that point, I didn't want to write that off, but apparently she's a big geek. There's a reason she said she wanted to be part of a Captain Marvel movie. She wanted to be considered for that, and she also wanted to be part of this. Now, as Romney pointed out, we had a little bit of a comment war. Not a horrible one. Like, I don't want the rumor mill spiking that, I don't want, what was it, Grumpgate? I don't want this happening here, because that's not what happened. But we were giving our opinions, and you're talking to the opposition. I am still opposed to this, and not because of Ronda Rousey. Given the recent dealings with Metroid, I don't think we're ready for a film at this point. And I tried to in a very, I guess in a trolly way, but I tried to basically say we're not ready for a Metroid film in there. And the main reason is because Other M is still in people's minds, and whether you like it or whether you don't, there are people that don't, and it's a really dirty taste in their mouth. You also had the other Metroid game that got announced, which didn't have a good reaction to it. But right now, Metroid its viewpoint isn't favorable. So I guess my argument would be is we need to get Metroid back in a favorable light so that it isn't, when a film comes out, it isn't just written off as, oh, it's another bad video game adaptation that nobody will go watch. It's a game that only those weird cult fan people would get into. And I don't want Metroid to have that. In fact, I was really excited back in the day when John Woo had the rights. Because I'm like, you know what? John Woo's probably the guy that could do it, given his background at the time. I don't know who could do it now. What was that?
Well, it's just hearing John Woo was like, space doves.
Yeah. So, I actually want to expand this. We're going to get into Rondo, but I also want to get into the film itself, like whether or not it should happen, and if so, how should it happen. I'm not going to get into that until I talk to everybody else, but my viewpoint on Ronda Rousey doing it is kind of similar to Romney's viewpoint on the matter, which is Ronda doesn't have acting experience.
She can't act! That's the thing! Everybody's like, oh, but she can work, but she can't act! And a lot of people think, oh, but she was good in Entourage. Entourage does not count! She was playing herself. I have seen her try to play the intimidating henchman in Furious 7, and just, my God. I mean, I'm going to say...
Playing yourself is not an acting accolade.
Yeah, let me put it this way. I'm gonna pretty much
You're
say
not going to earn an Oscar for playing yourself.
I'm pretty much gonna say word for word the same thing I said when we were fielding the same damn thing
when we were talking about Captain Marvel.
When we were talking about Captain Marvel. If Ronda Rousey is willing to put the time and effort to learn how to act, then yeah. If she's willing to actually work that hard to to actually learn how to act, then yeah, I'd be open to the idea because she does have the physique, and I wouldn't be against her visually. But that's the thing, she can't act. She can't act.
See, that's the thing that has to be brought up. Like, a lot of sports stars want to come in and not have to do that level of effort to be able to hit it big. You know, they want to go in and be Dwayne Johnson and have that natural charisma and just make it work. Dwayne did go the extra mile, people, for the record. So before you start going into that. But right now, Ronda's coming off as one of those that is not willing to go that extra level of distance. Granted, she hasn't been given a whole lot of opportunity to do so, but I would definitely tell Ronda this, and right in my webcam, Ronda, you want to play Captain Marvel? That's fine. You want to play Samus Aran? That's fine. But I expect effort from you. If you don't know how to act, and playing yourself doesn't count, if you don't know how to act, you need to learn how. Especially considering these two characters, you're going to need to know how to act because you're going to have lines.
Well, then, and the thing is that even if you're playing a character with no lines, you still need to know how to act.
Yeah, you need to be able to inflect on the camera. You need to be able to show the situation that is happening because 80% of it, like, let's just say for the sake of argument, you got Captain Marvel. Double or Nothing, when you're seeing the villain trouncing New York City, it's going to be in front of a green screen, which means you have to sell it to the crowd that is what you're seeing.
Well, yeah, and better example, with a character like Samus Aran, who is more or less mute through most of her games, that is the clear point of you need to be able to actually have that nuance in your facial expressions. I mean, the best example of contrast, when they were doing the Incredible Hulk TV show, it was going to either go to Schwarzenegger or Lou Ferrigno. The reason Lou Ferrigno won out is because he knew how to actually express himself because, well, that's more or less how he's had to communicate since he's hard of hearing. And so that's that extra thing. With a character like Samus, who's not going to be saying that much dialogue unless they decide to go the other M route, then that's another thing you need to be able to how to do is to convey a multitude of emotions. I mean, for example, when she's fighting Ridley, that's an example of a scene that you need to convey a whole gamut of emotions Samus would be feeling. Because it's not just, oh, this is just a space pirate. It's the space pirate, that wiped out the colony she lived in and killed her parents in front of her eyes. And you don't get a whole bunch of...
I'm going to stop you there because that's not canon, as people like to point out to me ever so much when I talk about other M.
Well, yeah, I know it's not canon, but let's face it, if there's somebody who's going to make a Metro movie, they're probably going to pull something like that because it's cheap drama. But that's a good example of a scene where you have to, without dialogue, with only your facial expression and body language, where you have to run the whole gamut of emotions. The combination of anger, but also the determination of not wanting to lose your cool because if you lose your cool, then you're going to leave your soul open. But that's the thing. There's a whole lot that's going on in Samus's head that you have to convey with only your facial expressions and body language, and that's a skill that takes years to master. I mean, even people like Dustin Hoffman and Robin Williams, that took them years to master that sort of thing. And
not only that, but I get that when this was actually brought to you and you were just spitballing, but let's just actually think about that for a second. Why do you want to play her? Because she's the woman. She is the first woman ever to be seen on a pixelated screen. So at that point, you want to be the person that marks that history to be able to say, I played her on the silver screen. But what happens if you do a bad performance of her? And granted, this is an argument that I did make, and I still stand to this. She does not have a whole lot of character development to begin with. But if you screw it up, your career will forever be that you were the person that effed up Samus Aran to the gamers. And as a fellow gamer, I can get that you would appreciate that. That you wouldn't want to screw that up. So that's why we're saying, go the extra mile, get yourself some acting classes, make sure you know what you're doing, because this isn't all going to be, I sit there and look pretty. 80% of the time, you're going to be in a power suit. The most contact with your person that anybody is going to have is right here. And that's what has to sell the scene. And if you can't do that, and again, I appreciate Romney for bringing up Robin Williams, this took years for him to be able to do. If it took him years, it's going to take you years. So I get that you want to do this, but, well, you know what, I have no problem with this just because I want an extra 5 or so years to reinvigorate Metroid to people. But that's just me. So let's open this up to the panel because I have a feeling me and Romney, we could go endlessly on this matter.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we went endlessly in the comments.
So Brenton is actually asked to go last on this one, so I'm going to hold to it. Alex, your thoughts on Ronda Rousey wanting to play Samus Aran?
See, the problem is when you guys can get on long spiels, you pretty much kill any arguments that I can possibly make in counter. God damn it. Okay, you know, you guys make definitely excellent points that Ronda does have to sell it, even if she can't sell it by lines, because, well, my thought on the matter was, well, okay, maybe Ronda isn't a great actress, but if she can't do Samus, the character, she could maybe do Samus in the physique form, right? She could just be the gal in the power suit, and if Samus ever comes out of the suit, well, somebody else just kind of takes her place on screen. But Romney makes that really good point that, yeah, even if it's just Samus in the suit, well, Ronda's still going to have to sell that physique. She's going to have to sell the emotions coming out of the suit, coming out of the character like that. So that's certainly an issue to work with, I think. But it's something to consider, is possibly doing a sort of a double... I can't think of a good example really to compare it to, but just sort of an actor plays Samus on screen, and then Ronda plays her in the suit.
Well, the best example would be the Incredible Hulk TV series with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, because you had Bill Bixby playing Dr. Banner and Lou Ferrigno playing the Hulk.
All right.
Mm-hmm. At the very most, what you're looking at from Samus's angle is that it would be Ronda with the suit off, and it would be Ronda with the helmet off, but it would probably be a stunt girl in the power suit for like all the bigger shots. Like the glamour shots, they would put Ronda in the suit just so that they could get that reaction. But that's a big thing to deliver, especially from a character that, well, she was beloved up until, I want to say, Other M, and then at that point people became kind of 50-50 with her. With some going into the camp that Other M just absolutely sucked and they should go back to the Prime era, and people like me who literally don't think that Other M was that bad of an attempt. And frankly, if you have problems with Samus's character development, I would honestly ask you one serious question. The developer was Team Ninja. Did you expect them to step out of their norms? That's not a fair argument. I actually kind of did, but that was because I played Ninja Gaiden 3 before I played Other M.
I got a question. If is Metroid really that sour in people's mind? I mean, we kind of had the same thoughts when we were talking about the Sonic
Metroid
movie.
itself?
I mean, yeah, not just yeah, Metroid. So it's not like quite like when we were talking about the Sonic movie. What was it, 1-2 weeks ago? Where Sonic's really not in the best of positions right now, culturally wise. He's kind of more of a punchline these days. But, I think Metroid still has enough of a following, enough of a fan base to carry a movie of some kind, if put into the right hands. I mean, it's a video game movie. Right now it's so 50-50 when it comes to video game movies. We haven't really had any really strong examples of excellent...
Well, but also, Sonic is a different argument, because Sonic has, 25-plus games in its library. Metroid doesn't have that many. Metroid has very few, and the other concept is Sonic's character has been well established, who he is. Samus, not so much, and I still get into arguments with people on this. But Samus has not really had... I don't mean to say mean things, but Samus is a female Link. She has had virtually no character development on screen. She has been nothing more than a narrator. She is a silent protagonist, like most Nintendo characters are. And that's not a bad thing. But one of the arguments that gets brought up a lot with Other M is that, oh my gosh, her character development is horrible. Well, you presume that she had character development to begin with. And most of that was projected from you onto the character. And at this point, I'm here to say, sorry, Samus didn't have that much development. Samus was a narrator, pure and simple. That's all she ever did in her roles. Whenever she had dialogue, she was narrating. She was explaining the situation. And when Other M actually had her explain how she was feeling and convey how she was feeling, that was at least something. That was character development that was unique and all brand new. And yeah, I get a lot of people hated it, but I'd gladly take it over 0. I mean, it was still 1. It was not 0.
Yeah, then speaking as someone who was more, I mean, I'm not necessarily the person who thinks that it's completely bad. I thought the gameplay was fun. It's just, when you look at it from the perspective that this is supposed to be the story that tells us who Adam is, and you play through Metroid Fusion, she talks about how influential this CO was on her as a person, and then you get kind of an underwhelming thing that we never really, like, it's something that we never really got to see how influential it was. It was just more, it's kind of the Star Wars prequel argument, where we're just told that he's influential on her, but we never actually really saw it in any real regard, even with the epilogue.
And I'll give you that. It was totally broadcast. I would much rather have seen it. I much would have rather had them have dialogue together, and they really didn't. But at the same time, this was as much as we got, and it's frankly more than even the glorious Prime games have ever given us.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brinton, I think it's time. Now you actually need to get into this. You need to get into this.
Yay!
That's not the reaction I was expecting. But okay.
I can do a better one. Woo!
Gosh. Okay. I guess I'll take that.
Well, being one of the more initial people who found this, I literally found this article while on hold with an insurance company. I was just flipping through Twitter, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to share this, and not thinking that I was going to get the reaction that it did. But what I would have, one of the first things that come to my mind is, out of all the games that they could choose to make a movie into, yeah, I have her too.
Mm-hmm.
I got, yeah.
Offensive is not pleased with you. Oh, I'm kidding.
The number one thing that scares me is making a movie out of a Nintendo game. I don't even go straight to Ronda. I go straight to, why are we thinking about taking a Nintendo title and making it into a movie? Seeing how badly movie adaptations to video games are in general. And that's the thing that and that's the thing that I found interesting. Not the fact that she wants to play Samus. All for it. If she wants to, great. That's awesome. I do agree that she does need some acting lessons. I watched her host Saturday Night Live, and I was just like, this is very painful to watch. And very painful. So yeah, I completely agree with what you all are saying in regards to her needing to act and etc., etc., etc. Very eloquently stated comments this evening. What scares me is that there are people who want to make Nintendo games into movies for the silver screen, and I can't. I can't fathom. I can't. And being how one of my favorite franchises is Zelda, if I heard, oh, we're bringing that to the silver screen, I will petition.
There's campaigns that have been going on since 2000 to do it.
Mm-hmm.
No, they can't.
Like with what was it?
Zelda.
No, I'm thinking of Thundercats, where it was Vin Diesel as Panther. No, there's actually been like legit movie trailers on YouTube saying that Zelda needs to happen. And I'm there with you. I don't think Zelda should happen on the silver screen. I just don't think there's enough story there to do it. But let me actually prescribe like a little bit of a counter argument to you then. Pokemon. So we technically have Nintendo movies that have been successful. Pokemon. All the movies that have come out to theaters have done fairly well, minus 4. So you have that, and also I think it was in 2005. A company actually approached Nintendo. It wasn't Sony. I know Romney's probably going to remind me of this, or maybe it was Aldo that I talked with him on. But somebody actually approached them about doing a CG Mario movie.
Yeah, that was Sony.
A Mario... No. It was a company before that actually was going to do a Mario movie CG-based that was going to cater to kids, and it'd be like Mario Galaxy. It'd be that Mario. And the ideas that they were actually presenting got the gaming community interested, like legitimately interested. This sounded like a serious fix to the old Mario movie that a lot of people wanted it to happen. I still see people asking for that to happen, not a live action one. So yeah, I mean, granted, Nintendo or video game movies don't have that great a reputation. They're getting better, but they don't have that, and so I get that cringeworthy value. But yeah, there's been campaigns, Brenton. I mean, obviously John Woo had Metroid. He had the rights to Metroid up until 2004. Zelda has been asked for a movie since 2000.
Yeah, and I remember we even covered a Netflix. We even covered a while back that Netflix wanted to develop a series based on Legend of Zelda. Now,
I remember that.
But yeah, I'm in the different camp though, where I do see that there is a story that could be told using the Legend of Zelda.
Sure.
But the big thing that they would need to avoid is trying to tie it to a particular game, because that's what hurt the Prince of Persia movie, was that they were tying it to Sands of Time when there was no Sands of Time game out on the market. And so it's like, oh, well, it needs to be based on Ocarina of Time, but no. I mean, especially when you look at the manga, I'd pull it off my shelf, but then the shelf would topple over. But the Akira Himekawa manga, or even the Shotaro Ishinomori manga, there is a way to tell the story of Zelda. It's just that people need to understand that movies can do what movies can do, games can do what games can do. And so you just need to look at the bare essentials of what makes The Legend of Zelda The Legend of Zelda. Like, what makes people like Link? What makes people want to explore the world that they're put into, and use that to kind of guide the story. It doesn't have to be based on any particular game. You would just say, take the core story of the very first Zelda game and turn that into a movie. Don't try to be...
Even to couple with that argument, I mean, for as much as you want to call the original cartoon hammy, it still has a cult following. People do appreciate it. People wanted a movie based off of that idea. I didn't, but people did. So, because they basically looked at it and went, I want a Zelda movie. I don't care how you do it. Well, that's a justification that can bring the unholy Triforce to the silver screen, which we don't want.
Yeah. And pretty much that's the case with any video game movie, is that, I mean, the best example that I can think of a filmmaker trying, although they didn't get to do it, was George A. Romero when he was asked to do Resident Evil. He actually not only... And this is the fundamental difference between George A. Romero and Paul W.S. Anderson. Paul W.S. Anderson just watches Let's Plays of Resident Evil games, whereas George A. Romero had his assistant play Resident Evil, and not only did he take note of the story, he took note of the player's reaction. So that way he know, okay, what are these emotions the player is made to feel? How can I evoke those same emotions in the film version? Granted, the script he wrote isn't that great and would have pissed people off just as much as the Paul W.S. Anderson films, but that's the other key thing, is paying attention to the kind of emotions these games evoke in players and find a way to evoke those same emotions in an audience.
Yep. Brenton, we cut you off, but go ahead and continue on with your point. This is what happens when you guys bring up this kind of discussions, people.
Oh, well, I partially take blame for it, so
So
I don't remember what I was quite saying, to be honest.
Well, you were pretty much saying, like, you don't have a problem with Ronda Rousey, which I don't think anybody has, as long as she does what we asked. Yeah, as long as she does the acting classes. And I also get your kind of preservation with having a Nintendo movie come out, because, well, we don't want to have that moment where our childhood gets ruined in front of our eyes. But, I mean, eventually it's going to happen. Somebody is going to convince Nintendo that they can do this, or Nintendo will do it themselves. Which I think is the more likely concept, is that Nintendo would do it themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they were able to make an Animal Crossing movie and have some moderate success, Nintendo is definitely going to want to do this in-house. I mean, I mean, looking at what they did with Pokemon and Animal Crossing, my guess that's probably how it's going to come about. Is that maybe Nintendo will go to the animation studio that does Pokemon and say, "Hey, would you like to work on some of these other franchises we do and create an animated movie based on Zelda or based on Mario?" Because they've cultivated those kind of relationships with these animation companies, so that's probably the route they're going to go.
Which I've also heard, like with the Sony, because I believe they're still in negotiations. They're nowhere near a deal. But Nintendo has been asserting that they want like control over it because it is their properties, and they have every right to say that. So at that point, I'm not, and I want to reemphasize here, I'm not against a Metroid movie. I think it's completely fine to do so. I even have some ideas on what they could do. In fact, one of them is an origin story. Actually do an origin story. If the manga is not canon anymore, do an origin story. Because then at that point, that actually sets up for Samus to have character development in the movie. That's the best thing that you could possibly do. Because if you try to do like what made Metroid popular and completely isolate, it's just going to come off as an Alien ripoff, which in essence, film-wise, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So at that point, we don't want to hurt that.
Well, and I mean, there's a way that you could do that sort of isolated sort of story, because we've seen stuff like that with Gravity and All Is Lost, films that are all about like being isolated in extreme situations. It can be done, but all the more reason why you need an actress who can actually like convey emotion without dialogue. Why you need someone who has mastery over body language, and facial expression, not just dialogue, because if you don't have that kind of actor that can carry a film like that, then it'll all fall apart, because you can have all the visual effects and everything else in place, but if you don't have the right kind of actor that can carry it that has enough charisma that can actually carry such a movie, then the whole thing will fall apart.
Yeah. So I think we hammered this pretty hard, and holy crap, this took both Where's the Fair Use and Metroid took up a good portion of this evening. So I'm actually going to have to put this on the fly, people, because there are going to be some stories that we're going to be able to get to, and some we are not. And maybe they'll get carried over to next week. I don't know. But we did also have some listener questions that I did want to get to tonight, mainly because I do get them a lot, and so I want to give a definitive answer for them. So the next thing that we actually are going to cover is one of those listener questions, which is in regards to a video that I'm not sure when it came out, because I am not a fan of Alpha Omega Sin. I have no problem admitting that. He tends to get a little too ranty for me. So, but apparently he did a video going into the whole Konami situation and Capcom situation, because Konami was on fire last year with all of their actions, and Capcom right now is under fire for a lot of their recent decisions. Cough, cough. Street Fighter V, cough, cough. So I'm gonna get there, people. I really will. And so in a lot of cases, the question that Alpha did ask was, can a video game company, after doing so much crap in its fans' eyes, can they eventually redeem themselves to the fans? Can they do so? If so, how do they do that? Which is a harder question to answer, but we'll get into it as much as we can. And I'm also going to expand this to the panel a little bit, like in the way of, if you would want a company to do this, who would that company be? And so, first question to go in there: can a video game company redeem themselves to fans? Yes. Yes, it is entirely possible. I've seen a lot of companies do it over the years. So it is technically possible. It's an ordeal, especially when, in some cases, the video game company thinks they were in the right for the development choices that they made. But it's a hard process, and eventually that will mean that they have to admit they were wrong and go back to a style that people appreciated, and have to kind of stick with that until they can implement newer ideas that fans will more embrace. And also, the other part of this is that sometimes fans put really undue expectations, especially in this day and age. I don't want to put this all on the video game companies. Some stuff has been outrageous from fans too. And so it's not entirely in one camp on that matter. I've answered that. I think it's entirely possible for a video game company to redeem themselves, as well as kind of going into how you would do that. If I had a company that I would really want to do that, I'm going to cheat because it's two companies, and that would be Konami and Capcom, because I don't know what the F they're thinking these days. And these companies are my childhood. I would really like to see Konami say, look, we were wrong to Hideo Kojima. Good luck with his future career, and we're going to start working on Castlevania again. Is that likely? Probably not, but that's something I would like to see happen. I would also like to see Capcom learn from on-disc DLC and not including a story game and a frickin' fighting game to actually doing the things that made them popular in the first place, that made other companies emulate them as far as their games were concerned. So let's just go ahead and go down the panel here. Romney, is it possible for a video game company to redeem themselves to the fans?
I like to believe that it is possible because, I like to believe that anybody, any company, anything I like to be optimistic in that they can redeem themselves, but really it just comes down to the idea of basically making good games and not doing some of the crappy tactics, avoiding stuff like microtransactions or on-disc DLC, and just not treating your fan base like jerks.
Crap. Yeah.
And that's really just the simplest way to do it, is just make good games and don't treat your fan base like crap, and eventually you'll win them back. That's really just the simplest way to do it. And I'm with you. I want Konami to eventually redeem itself. It's just hard to see it happening in the near future because, well, pachinko machines. And
erotic violence.
And erotic violence requiring you to hit the lever. It's just... I do believe it can. It's just, like anything, it just takes time. And
or another company that I actually can bring up that I would like to see do this is, and people are going to scream at me, but Monolith Soft needs to I haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles yet, but X is a bad taste in my mouth, and I've played further into that game for the naysayers. But Monolith Soft has definitely fallen off from their glory days as far as I'm concerned. And that was a sad thing for me, because like one of my favorite games of all time is from Monolith Soft. So, but anyway, back to Romney here. So is there another company that you wish would redeem themselves?
Well, not so much that I can think of, because I don't really have any particular companies that come to mind aside from what's already been mentioned. I mean, I'm looking at my game shelf, and really, it just comes down to the simple idea of it just takes time. It's just very simple, like make good games, don't take shortcuts, don't use some of the predatory tactics that a lot of companies have been veering towards, and it's pretty much, if you make good games and don't treat your fan base like crap, people will come back. It just takes time.
It really does, and it also takes a lot of humility on their part.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, do you think a video game company can redeem themselves to the fans?
Sure, but of course the company has to will it, and they have to notice that they've made mistakes and acknowledge the mistakes. We talked about this, I don't know, probably a year ago or so, maybe even earlier this. Yeah, it was probably actually about a year ago. When Sega came out and said, we apologize. We know we've wronged the fans. We've lost your trust. And that's good. I mean, admitting is the first step, of course. But I've always said when companies come out and they admit that they've had a wrong, they've had a big fault, and that they need to redeem themselves in our eyes, well, great. It's great you're apologizing, but talk is kind of cheap. I want to see some action first.
Yep.
I want to see. So that's what I got to say here is, when you're gonna have to apologize, I want to see action. I want to see an action plan at least. Maybe if you can't put into action right away, I want to see your method to your madness. I want to see how you're going to remedy the situation and make yourselves better in our eyes. Then I can see, will you follow through on that practice, and will the plan go according, or will it maybe falter? At least when you lay out a plan, we can kind of see what went right, what went wrong when you tried to follow it, and go from there. Give more feedback to say, hey, here's what went right when you tried to put in your recovery plan. Here's what didn't go right. Here's our feedback. Pretty simple, I think.
Okay. And a company that you would wish would redeem themselves to the fans.
Oh, I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, certainly Sega's one of them, but we've harped on Sega plenty. I think Nintendo could stand to do a little redemption just for some of the.
Actually, I would dare say Nintendo is one of those few companies that is kind of constantly on redemption road. Like, they will make a mistake and then they'll put themselves back on redemption road. That would be one of the examples I would make that, yes, a company can redeem themselves. Because Nintendo's done it numerous times.
Yes, but Nintendo still has a few sins to repent of. The unfriendliness towards the YouTube community.
How about being Hitler to the video game industry as a whole?
Yeah.
I mean, they're still making up for that one.
Yeah. The sort of controlling business practices that they keep implementing, because since the 80s, there's so much Nintendo does right, but there's also so much that they do wrong. But that's what we want to see with the coming future, with the new president, that he'll start to take the company into a direction we can all look forward to.
Do we have an official new president?
Yeah, that we talked about it last year.
Hajime Satomi is still there at last I checked.
No,
he's not the new one.
Yeah, he's not the new one. His last name is Kimishima.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I hadn't heard that, but I've seen Satomi come out and say a few things.
Well, yeah, because I know we talked about it last year, because it was like end of the year last year when they made the announcement. He came up through like human resources. He worked at a major Japanese bank.
That's right. Okay. Brenton, do you feel that a video game company can redeem themselves to the fans?
Yeah, I do. I think so.
Have we taken all your words?
You all made some really good. Yeah, pretty much. My example, I would say, would have to be, like, I was gonna kind of go into Nintendo stuff as well, just because I felt like the games I was most excited for this past year, like 2015, was non-Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Which kind of shocked me when, especially when when I was on the podcast for the first show of the year, January 2nd, and I realized, wow, I loved a game. Like, my favorite game of 2015 was not a Nintendo game, and my least favorite was, and so that really like shocked me. That afterwards, because I was just like, how is that possible? And to use an example just of what Alex was saying, how they're constantly on redemption road, was their whole Amiibo fiasco. There were other companies, I can't think of, Activision, I believe, that's one that comes off the top of my head, that outright called out Nintendo of America and said, it is pathetic and unprofessional that you cannot supply a product to your customers the way that you have been. That is just disgusting.
Same thing was being said to them about the Wii, if you remember.
Yeah, I actually do remember that. It took me forever to find a Wii. I bought my Wii in Price, Utah. That is the only place I could find one.
Well, I can guarantee you. Did you pay $200 for it?
I don't remember.
I have a friend who paid $600 on eBay for a Wii.
Oh my gosh!
That's what that happened with. That's one of those things, and I actually think the same criticisms were being leveled towards Nintendo, that they could not provide Wiis on demand, that they were backed up in their own factories, so it's just something that they've had to deal with. And before people harp on me, another company I would say is on redemption road and constantly, Electronic Arts, because occasionally they will make good decisions, but most of them are bad.
And I feel like with some of the things that they've even, because I know that the CEO has been coming out and talking to the fans and being like, we're not trying to be this devil company, and it's like, okay, way to apologize. Like, are you trying to make people hate you more than they already do?
But then again, I mean, to counter that argument, how many CEOs has Electronic art's gone through. The list would stagger you.
I'm sure it would.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I mean, the problem is like one of the first things that you have to do in order to start Redemption Road. You know, I hate to bring up Sega as an argument, but it was the thing that I demanded, which was the president has to resign because the president is the living embodiment of the direction that you hate. And so at that point, the first thing that needs to happen is either the president is fired or the president resigns. And so at that point, EA has done this so many times that this isn't even a step to them anymore. People still consider them the devil company. This has happened so many times, 3 strikes and you're out. So that's another example of a company that's been there and has constantly redeemed themselves. EA has great games in their library. But for every one game that they have that is absolute gold, they have another 5 that have absolute crap or have been controversial. So that's something to say there. I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring that up as an example too.
No, that is a great example. So I mean, the biggest thing. So I mean, in the end, after Nintendo, because Nintendo did come out with their statement, we're going to try harder to supply more Amiibo, which I feel that they actually did towards the end of 2015. I would say it took them a good 5 to 6 months before they actually provided the supply based on demand. And it's, in my opinion, it's a little bit easier to find Amiibo that I would like. So I'm not like worried anymore about like Cloud, Corrin, or Bayonetta when those finally get put on shelves. But in the end, the biggest thing that I really would like to see from Nintendo is I would just like to start taking things in a newer direction, and only time will tell is if they actually will do that. So right now, my faith in them has crumbled a little bit. I'm still holding out that this new Zelda title will be great. I'm really hoping that this new console will be great. So I'm just keeping my expectations at an average level, I guess. Just not too low, but not too high. Just going into it, not expecting a lot, I guess. I don't really know how to describe that.
Well, and so I'm guessing you would say that the company that you would want to redeem itself is Nintendo.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, in a lot of cases, like we gave a lot of praise to Satoru Iwata, and I still love Iwata-san, rest in peace. But I mean, the Amiibo fiasco, the Wii fiasco, they were under his supervision. So at that point, that is something that he probably had to answer to his shareholders for. And we now have a new CEO that hasn't had a whole lot of direction as far as any of this is concerned. I can guarantee you NX will be the defining moment of his momentum, of his viewpoints, of where he's going to take the company. That's where it's going to start, is NX announcement at E3.
Oh, absolutely. So, he got thrown into something very, very, very big. Just kind of like President Obama. He was thrown into something very, very, very big in 2008. And, well, I'm just going to leave it at that. So,
I'm delivered.
Oops. We're not going to get on a political conversation, but
no, that's me.
My fingers are crossed that the Nintendo presentation in June for E3 will be good. Again, I'm not going in with low or high expectations. I'm just going in hoping that information actually isn't leaked, because last year was so annoying. I didn't even watch the Nintendo presentation because I pretty much saw everything the week before E3 even happened.
Well, that's not going to be hard, because console specs are harder to leak. I mean, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One were some of the best examples of tight-lipped. Nobody data mined the information. Nobody got the information in any way, shape, or form until the reveal. And so at that point, I think Nintendo will still employ that level of security. At this point, all we know is what Nintendo has told us, which is a good standpoint from a new console perspective. So, with that, though, I'm glad that you brought up politics, Brinton. Because guess what the next story we're talking about is?
It's something political. I completely forgot.
we've had a lot of deep stuff tonight, so and we're actually getting really close to the end. I have a feeling some of these stories are going to make it to next week, but this one we need to talk about because I don't know how many listeners brought this up to me, or have you heard about this, or whatnot, and then the panel brought it up. So now I have to talk about it. And I'm so happy I have to talk about it, because I wouldn't have found this any other way. So I guess I actually need to bring up the state that this happened.
It's in Georgia.
It was in Georgia.
Yep. Atlanta, Georgia.
Amidst all of the political controversy that is going on, because this year's an election year, people, and this election year has had its fair share of controversy. I would actually dare say, like the last couple of elections have. But this one took the cake, and I want to compliment this person for his sheer geekdom, because it was awesome. So, at a Donald Trump rally, a guy actually came in. He was wearing civilian clothes. He looked like he was just your average guy coming in there. And then when I don't think they actually say what was said to get people. The crowd was chanting USA, but we don't know what actually led to that. During this USA chanting, I don't think we have his name, but we have his Twitter handle, at BootyMath, who was in civilian clothes, decided then it was a good idea to strip down to his Sailor Moon outfit. Yep, that's right. I said it, people. His Sailor Moon outfit. And immediately began to start saying the monologues of Sailor Moon louder than the crowd.
Yeah, I found his real name. His real name is Zach Fox.
Thank you, Zach Fox. I salute you, sir. So at that point, obviously security stepped in and hauled him away. He was in, and you guys can see images of it. There's a video of it where I love how he says this. BootyMath shows his support at the Donald Trump rally, and it's basically him in a Sailor Scout outfit and a cap. And he was literally quoting the Sailor Moon monologue and trying to say it louder than the USA chant. So normally I would come out and say that's dirty pool and you shouldn't do that and all that. But you know what? I'm in a festive mood today. And this guy was completely expressing his freedom of speech rights by coming out and being in a Sailor Scout outfit. I'm actually kind of surprised he was the only one that came out. Are you kidding me? Your friends didn't want to do this? I even just presented this idea to Alex. Why was there not a friend, whether it be a guy friend or a girlfriend, that came out as Tuxedo Mask?
Well,
or as the other Sailor Scouts?
To be fair, people at Trump rallies can get very riled up and very violent. So it's probably more that, given that there was a Black Lives Matter protester at one of the rallies that literally got beat up and pummeled by a crowd at a Trump rally, I don't necessarily blame people for not wanting to join him because, well, they don't want to get beat up.
Okay, here's where you're. I'm just bringing this argument up theoretically, Rummy. Here's where you're wrong. The security starts stepping up to him, and then all of a sudden they are shocked when a rose hits the floor, cracks the concrete, and then his friend comes out, and I really want it to be like a girlfriend who comes out in the Tuxedo Mask uniform, who immediately starts monologuing and giving advice to Sailor Moon. And usually those monologues were like 10 minutes long, so that gives enough time for BootyMath to escape.
Yeah, problem is Trump's supporters probably wouldn't let him get out.
Sure.
This is why security intervened and had him and got him to leave peacefully, because, well, let's just say it just would not end well for anybody. And I mean, I as funny as that would be, it's just...
Do we know if he is actually a Trump supporter? Or did he go to oppose it?
I doubt if he's crashing a Trump rally to strip down to Sailor Moon. I kind of doubt he's a supporter.
Well, yeah. Literally looking at the tweet that shows the pictures, I mean, it's tweeted by one of his friends. The handle is Princess Bubbler. It says, "Champion of Justice, BootyMath here, ready to fuck up some rallies in the name of the moon."
Yeah.
Oh my Lanta.
So Yeah, this happened. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, no, you should shame him for doing this. I'm not. I'm not. Because, frankly, he did express his mind, whether or not it was silly. And, frankly, when I saw this, this was like the brightest part of my day. Mainly because politics, especially during an election year, I don't know if you guys have the same problem, but like I cannot think of anything that elevates my blood pressure higher. And it doesn't even matter what side of the aisle you're on. You don't want to see these stories in your Facebook feed, in your Twitter feed, in anywhere. And then you see that this guy did that, and it's like, it's at least laughable. It's at least not like making you want to cringe. So I will tip my hat to you, Booty Math. You made my day. You made my freaking day.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't be in that outfit, but you made my day. I mean, look at the picture, man. It looks like it's maybe 5 sizes too small for him.
I can't look at the picture. That's the problem. I opened it up, but I was just like, oh, I think my eyes are finally bleeding.
My eyes are on fire.
I was just like, if it isn't half the crap I saw in Italy on my mission, or my Bayonetta Let's Play, where I'm just like, whoa, that's not something I want to watch. It definitely was that. So
wow, we are putting this akin to Bayonetta.
Hey, if he came in the Bayonetta 1 costume, just cleavage out, hair beautifully coiffed, or however you pronounce that, on top of his head, I would love this guy for the rest of my life. That is something I would look at.
Oh man. So, holy crap, man! I'm at least happy that this happened. I know that they're like, I've already gotten people in my Facebook feed saying that I should chastise this man for doing what he did, but I can't do it. I at least want to give him some credit. He took his First Amendment rights, which technically Donald Trump should stand for. And I at least am happy that security asked him to amicably leave, and he did so. All right? Because he technically could have just said, F that noise, and continued to do what he was doing, because I still, like, I could bring up numerous political rallies where everybody wanted to be, make this statement here and not leave. This guy amicably left. He was in a Sailor Moon outfit. He left. He made a statement. So I'll at least give that, but I'm going to open it up to the panel. Maybe I'm the only one. You guys' opinions on, did this guy do the right thing? Did he do the wrong thing? Was it in poor taste?
What I would have to say to this is, I don't care about politics whatsoever. When it will get closer to November, I do start to limit my activity on social media because I hate election year. But I you know what? Good for him. Election year, like in the past few years, especially all of 2015, with how quick everybody in this country is to getting offended, we need somebody like him to go out and do something silly, to do something fun, and just to lighten up such an already tense mood.
Or considering like how many, quote, social justice warriors are out there now, it just, everything just makes you want to cringe if it's politically motivated.
Exactly. And politics, they're already one of those like deadly sin type topics where the second you bring it up, there are tons of people who are just super pissed. Romney, obviously, because Romney just left.
Romney hates us all right now.
Oh, gee.
He probably just got kicked off. So
that could have not been more perfect. But no, it's like religion. You bring up religion and everybody instantly hates each other. Bring up politics, everybody instantly hates each other. So it's just something that I don't bring up. And it's something that I even personally just don't even do on my own channel. You won't ever hear me talk about my political views. You will never hear me talk about my religious views. Hell, you won't even ever hear me talk about the politics and religious views on homosexuality, because it's just things that there's things that I do care about in small quantities, but not enough for me to share over the internet, because there's some level of I do not care, that stops me from sharing those quantities. So in the end, I'm good for you. Okay, I want to give this guy a hug. I just want to tell him thank you so much for doing something like this, because we need more of this in America. We need more of people who are willing to be quirky and dorky and be themselves. Yep. So good for him. And that's all I have to say on the matter. And actually no, I have one more thing to say. The fact that it was also at the Trump rally just made it all the much better. I am now done.
And this, my friend, you and I can agree on.
Woo!
So, and here's the thing too. Like, I've seen a lot of your content, and I actually would say, like, I have no idea on your political leanings and all that. And I think actually that helps your channel to an extent, because your channel isn't about that. Mine, on the other hand, I think I've said maybe a few things politically here and there, but I've kept it very limited too. I have been told I very much broadcast my political leanings, and I believe that. I believe that just because I'm a very, this is, why did I do it? You can't see me. And why did I do John Cena? But I'm very, this is me. This is not a character that I play on the internet. This is me. And I don't intend to be deceptive or anything like that. I'm going to be myself on my YouTube videos. That's just the way it is. Even with my reviews, I am very much myself. So I wouldn't be surprised if my viewpoints are there, because my viewpoints are part of who I am. But yeah, that's me. So I can completely understand your whole concept. And man, politics are so bad. I actually have friends and family that when we get together, those topics are banned now. They're just outright. They've been banned for like 8 years. Well, no, longer than that. 2004. They've been banned for 12 years.
12 years.
So that's what's happened with politics these days. Alex, your viewpoint on the hero of love and justice coming out at a Donald Trump rally.
Well, and how dare he disturb such an important rally? No, I'm kidding. No, Brenton's right. This was
It's a Donald Trump rally. There's no such thing as an important rally. Go on.
Exactly.
No, I want him to say something about that now. Donald Trump, I dare you to hate us.
Yeah, Donald Trump, go ahead. Make our day.
Do you want to know what? Donald Trump, if you hate us, you'll fight. There you go.
Brenton is right. This brings some strange amount of levity to you're right, to an already heavy moody political cycle. God, these elections feel like they go on forever now, because it feels like
that's because they do.
They do. They
literally have. I swear, this election started day one after 2012.
After
it pretty
2000,
much did.
There were already candidates being announced like 2 days after the election had happened.
That's what I'm saying. Right. We agree with you. We know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like right after.
The second President Obama got elected again, it was everybody saying, okay, who's next? And it's like, okay, if we were already so upset, like, here's the thing. Why did we elect him again? Like, that's the thing that just completely pisses me off. And this is the part where, like, this is like the small quantity I'm talking about, because now a fire's lit under me. If we were already upset after 4 years, why did we elect him for another 4 freaking years, people?
Well,
like, what the hell?
Welcome to Fox. Which network would this be now? Would this be Fox News, because we're talking a lot of Obama and Trump? No, because they speak out in support of Trump.
Fox or CNN.
I don't even know anymore.
Any talking head political show. Any talking head political show on cable. I'm sorry, I got off on a detour here. It's my fault. I derailed the conversation. I don't know whether this guy was trying to make a statement or just trying to have a little fun and kind of troll. But whatever, it was hilarious. I love it.
Yeah.
Just do it, dude. I don't care. I want to see him start doing this at Clinton rallies and Rubio rallies. I want to see him go crashing political rallies all over this country now as Sailor Moon fighting
he needs legitimate
justice.
He needs to have a posse then. If he's
can we start a FundMe to allow him to be able to do this?
Let's do it. Everybody. I want people start flash mobbing Sailor Moon. Okay, I really wish Aldo was here so he could start singing the Sailor Moon theme song.
If there's a political rally here in Salt Lake City, then I'm totally game for anybody, even the listeners. If there's somebody out there who's like, oh, there's going to be a political rally in Salt Lake, do you want to flash mob Sailor Moon with me? I will willingly do it, and I will even shave my legs to do it, so that I can frolic freely with a flowing skirt.
Or better yet, maybe not just Sailor Moon. I just suddenly want to see people start doing I think it's called the Para dance, or the Haruhi dance, the Haruhi Suzumiya dance. I want to see.
So
I'm
we have
going to take back Sailor Moon. I want to be in tight spandex as Bayonetta. Done.
Okay, then
if somebody can please make me a Bayonetta spandex costume, I will pleasantly wear it to rally.
I will totally dress up as in the Haruhi Suzumiya schoolgirl outfit if you do the Sailor Moon outfit.
Oh my gosh, so many promises are being made right now, and you guys have no idea the messages that are going to get sent in. Are they actually going to do it? Are you going to hold them to it? Things like this. This has just made my night a nightmare.
Seeing how they rarely ever have huge political rallies like that in Salt Lake City, Utah.
No.
I don't think
we're such a non-state at that point. I don't even think Bernie or Hillary are even going to show up here. And frankly, I don't even think any of the prime Republican candidates care because Utah.
Actually, I think Hillary did come here like a month ago. I think she's like.
Good for her.
It was like a private thing, though. It was like a private.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah, that was so fast and quick that somehow. I made that sound sexual in my head for some reason. I think it's just because it's Hillary Clinton.
So, the other thing that if I don't mention this, so we do have actually a little bit of a reason for this guy to do it, and I haven't wanted to bring it up because this is something that I've actually talked about too. So they actually do bring up that one of the main reasons that Booty Math might have done this was when Republican strategist Rick Wilson came out and likened Donald Trump supporters as childless single men who masturbate to anime.
Oh,
and I
already
trashed this like 3 weeks ago.
I got news for you. People who masturbate to anime aren't going to vote for Donald Trump, okay?
Please don't say who they're going to vote for. I really don't want that email.
I don't know who they'll vote for, but I know they're not going to vote for a Republican.
They'll write in L or Light Yagami. So anyway,
Lelouch for president.
Lelouch, there you go. Lelouch of the rebellion. Johnny Young Bosch, there you go. Johnny Young Bosch for president. So at this point, we need to wrap it up.
What do we do?
This is going to go in horrible tangents. It's looking like Romney is having trouble on his end, so I don't know if we're going to get him back, but I have a feeling his opinions aren't that skewed from what we actually feel on the matter. At least this was kind of a refreshing take. But there is one other thing that I do need to kind of sweep under the rug, and there's a reason that I brought up the Trump rally one, not only for some levity tonight. The other thing is that when this kind of a story comes up, I actually do get questions on why there isn't more, because there's way more political stories that happen with geekdom that I don't even bring up. Like involving games, involving anime, involving movies, and I don't usually talk about them. In fact, the GOP strategist, Rick Wilson, I wasn't going to bring that up at all. I saw no reason to do so. But then somebody put me in a little bit of a snark, and I just did. I think it was Brenton that did it, actually.
Yeah.
It might have been. I'll need to go back on that episode. Maybe it was Aldo. It could have been Brenton or Aldo, one of the two.
Sounds like something I'd do.
So one of the things that actually did get brought up is why don't you discuss political stories more on Geek News, or why don't you discuss actual politics? Okay. So I've already given a reason for this, but I'm basically sweeping this under the rug so Alex and Brenton can just go ahead and check out for the moment, because they've also helped contribute to this, or even give their feedback, because this is my viewpoint and I'm going to stick to it. When I designed this podcast from the ground up, I literally decided that I wanted to be as inclusive as possible. And I'm glad Brinton brought this concept up, because whenever you talk about things like religion or politics, even games to some extent, you tend to be excluding people. And in some cases where, because I've been this guy, all right, I've asked that question of podcasts that I have followed. And I regret that I ever did, because the reason I'm asking that question, and I'm not criticizing anybody, but the reason I asked it was because I wanted to know if this podcast host subscribed to my beliefs. And if he didn't, whether or not I should be wasting my time listening to his podcast. And that's never the way to approach that. Because I have one podcast that I listen to that is political. It is political from a funny perspective, but it is political. Most of the stuff that I listen to is exactly what I try to present here, in some way or another. It is geek-related. It is talking either about a specific subject or a more broad subject, and it is inclusive to as many demographics as can actually walk into this. And I don't see a reason to exclude people or to make people want to exclude themselves from this content. I love all of you guys. I love the comments that you give, whether they be good or bad, and I appreciate you all for it. Even to the people that don't want me to talk about politics, which I get that too. So here's the way that I literally approach this. If it's relevant to geek material, like if it's a big deal, like where's the fair use, which I could actually consider a politically charged debate. Or if it's like this guy going to a Trump rally. I have to decide whether or not it's legitimately relevant to the podcast and what we try to cover. This one was because it was funny, and because it was a geek showing his geekiness to a bunch of people who would literally consider him to be evil. And so I have no problem stepping out and saying, dude, I appreciate your fandom. I appreciate that you wanted to do that. Why don't I bring up political stories more regularly on the podcast? It's because most of them are charged, and therefore exclude people. And that's not what I want to do. I want to be able to, I want to bring you all in and give a big group hug, okay? And we can all enjoy in any passion, whatever. That's always been my belief towards geekdom, is that geek is passion. It's passion for whatever you appreciate. I've had this argument with numerous people who say, well, being a sports guy isn't being a geek. Yes, it is, because you're passionate about it. And I want to be able to include you as much as I can. So that's why these stories don't come up that often. Also because, look, I already am cringeworthy when I bring up political stories. I can only imagine what my panelists have to go through when I put it on the frickin' agenda. They literally probably have the shiver go up their spine and going, I don't know if I want to talk about this. Because I could totally put up like a completely politically charged agenda, and they may not want to come. So at that point, it's just not what the podcast is for. Will we talk about those stories occasionally? Sure. I've talked about the Maine congresswoman who literally her Republican opponent, his arguing point against her was that she had a World of Warcraft account and she played a rogue.
Are you kidding me?
That was his. Well, there's a reason he lost. He lost, and you know what? That's one of those cases where, yeah, the idiot deserved to lose, because at that point he was basically making the argument of, she plays a thief in a fantasy game. What makes you think she's not a thief in real life? People?
Oh my gosh, I want to go smack someone.
My wife plays a rogue in World of Warcraft. Does that mean she's stealing from me?
Yes, she is right now. She's totally.
Damn it, Alex!
She's cleaning out she's cleaning out your wallet right now. I can see her in the background.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna. Well, what I was gonna say was a little bit more dirty, so I think I'll hold my tongue.
Oh, Brinton.
Off the podcast.
So at that point, it is after dark.
It is technically, because we're over time. But yeah, that's why they don't get brought up. And and to the people who feel like I don't appreciate them because I don't bring up those stories, it's not that. There are tons of other stories that I have not been able to use that were listener suggested, and it's mainly because either A, there just wasn't enough material for me to be able to get anything for it, or B, it was so charged or so biased in a matter that I didn't really want to present it that way. And it's nothing against you guys, because I appreciate every single person that picks up this podcast and listens to it, whether it be for the 30th time or the first time. So I hope that answers your question. These won't come up that often. Am I going to be covering election results in November? Heck no. I have a feeling I'm going to be covering Pokemon Sun and Moon. I don't know how I'm going to cover it, but because I can't capture 3DS footage. But that's probably where I'm going to be going with it. Any thoughts that you guys want to provide to this particular question?
I think you've pretty much said it all. It's just when it's relevant, it's relevant, but most of the time, we're not a political show. We're not designed as a talking head political show.
No.
That other podcasts or other YouTubers might do. That's their thing. That's what they want to do. But we want to talk about what's going on in media, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with what both you and Alex just said. And I mean, I know I'm just an occasional guest on this podcast, but I want to, for any viewer who's listening right now, what I want to say to you is, if you want to listen to something more politically driven, you can find it. Pick up your phone. It's a little computer. Google something. There's a mass amount of information just right at your fingertips. If this podcast is not supplying your political thirst, there is one that will. And so...
Well, I can at least say...
Romney.
Hi.
Yeah.
He's like,
hi, Romney.
And he comes right at the end of the discussion. How can he?
Well, let me actually. We'll bounce back to Romney here, but just in this case, so I have an iPhone here. I really shouldn't, but I do, and I can already tell you, like, if that's what you want, here's a little podcast button, and it lets you search for whatever you want. And I bet you could literally search for that one political podcast that you want to listen to that prescribes to your particular beliefs. And whatever those beliefs are, I love you dearly for them. They are not part of your geeky beliefs, at least as far as I'm concerned. And that's what this podcast caters to.
Everybody needs something to believe in to get them through life. And that's great. And you should never be discriminated for that. Not at all. And that is one of the main reasons why I just never bring up those topics in any sort of media that I create, because I don't want anybody to ever feel like I am pushing my beliefs or political views on them and making them feel like, oh, I need to feel this way. Because no, you don't need to feel this way. And that's definitely one of the things that I bring up with me being a homosexual. I don't care if you don't agree with it. But if you're going to start pushing like your religious views on me and tell me I'm wrong because this is your belief, then no, that's when I'm going to get a little upset, because that's bullshit.
But clearly, anyway. Romney, but clearly, wow, I just started up another one, didn't I? But clearly, Brinton, the Church of Mario clearly states that if you don't jump at that brick with your head, you will not get the mushroom.
Well, that just makes sense.
And that's a sad thing. I love that you bounced that back with a common sense argument. So, Romney, really quick, do you want to interject on the Trump rally and also your kind of viewpoint on political stuff on the podcast?
Well, basically, the way that I view it is that, to kind of use newspapers as an example, reporters have particular beats. And, in my case, mine was arts and entertainment, and that's kind of the beat of the show, is geeky stuff. And really, that's the kind of show we want to do, because politics, there's a lot of baggage, there's just a lot of stuff that we could go into. I'm sure we all have radical opinions that could be warranted of a discussion. That's just not what this show is about. It's like going into a McDonald's and asking them to make you a Whopper. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we've even discussed, Adam and I have even discussed doing a separate show that would be at a separate time for that political discussion stuff, but really it's just, the week is rough enough. we don't want to get riled up over stuff like that because, well, yeah, in passing in the past we've discussed it a little bit. Just nothing set in stone. I mean, if you guys would want to see a separate show it wouldn't have all of us, obviously, because
it definitely wouldn't have me. I'm just saying that right now. I don't care enough about politics to be on a politics podcast.
Well, but Romney is right. You know, like, so I've done Geek News for who knows how long, and I've co-hosted on numerous other shows on Radio SLCC that became podcasts. One of which was sports related, and one was political related, and the pacing of them is just way different. Yeah, and so at that point, there's just no way to be able to fit those two paces together.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially we've even been on K-Talk, and the pacing of my dad's radio show is radically different from how we do things, because his show is pretty much fly by the seat of your pants and let the calls kind of dictate what you're talking about, but here we have a mostly set structure, and it's really just a case of that's just not what we do. I mean, especially if you follow my Twitter page, you know that I'm probably the most political of all the panelists, but...
I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to... I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't. Because there's so many more, like, because I follow you on Twitter and I follow you on Facebook, and there are so many other people that I follow that are way more politically charged than you.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying of the panelists, I'm probably the most politically charged. And it's pretty much, it's just, again, it's a simple case of it's just not what we do. It's not what the show's about. I mean, if you want a separate show, there's probably other separate shows. If you want to hear our opinions on political issues, this show just isn't the place to ask us about it. I mean, if I decide to go and create another show, I'll most certainly be sure to bring the panelists on if they want to come on. But it's just, again, like the example that I used. You don't go into a McDonald's and ask them to make you a Whopper.
You ask them to make you a McWhopper. No, I'm kidding.
More accurately, you don't go to a pizza place and ask for a hamburger.
I'm going to stop this right here now, because now there are pizza places serving hamburgers.
Yeah. Is it Olive Garden doing that now?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, here's the
better. Bring up Olive Garden. That's starting another fire. You don't want me.
Okay.
Maybe me putting watching fires under my little name today was very, very, very relevant, and I didn't even realize it until like now.
Yeah. So basically, what Brinton is saying, we just started the May, June, July, and August and September fires for him. So there you go.
Okay. So here's an example. There's no way anybody could kind of refute this. You don't go to a McDonald's and order Chinese food. There. Does that work? Does that work?
That works.
And don't even mention mall food courts. Mall food courts do not count.
Well, what if you're at a McDonald's in China?
Now, that's the thing. That's the thing. McDonald's right here now. If it's in China. That's the thing about restaurants. It just may have different flavorings, but it's still the core thing. I mean, for example, if you go to a McDonald's in Venice...
Make another example. I want to hear a rebuttal from Alex.
No. I'm stepping in at this point because here's the thing: if we don't wrap things up, YouTube will cut us off. So at this point, we do need to wrap things up because this is where it's getting silly. Okay,
outros. Let's get to it.
Yes, we really.
My name is Brinton.
But Brinton, we'll keep this audio and maybe we'll do something with it.
Oh my gosh.
So, Brinton, if people want to get a hold of you, first of all, thank you for stepping in again for another wonderful podcast. If people want to get a hold of you and see the content that you provide, how do they do so?
They can search my name into YouTube. It is listed on the screen if you're watching. If not, my name is spelled BRINTONVALLI. I can also be followed on Twitter at bvolley01. I am currently playing through Bayonetta and will be starting a brand new series on March 4th. So look out for that.
And considering what I think it is, I'm very interested. So at that point, it'll be awesome.
Oh yeah, I was editing the first part right before this, and I was just like, my commentary is on point. At the start of this video, I got really sassy. So I hope you all enjoy it.
All right. Alex, the Shadow Blazer, if people want to get a hold of you, and see the wonderful content that your channel provides with great anime reviews, and you're covering like the current season of anime right now, how do they get a hold of you to do so?
Well, of course, YouTube is the best place to find me for any of my video content. I am ShadowBlazer3000. Pretty simple to look for in the search engine. You can also find me on Twitter at AlexJShort is my handle. You can find me on Facebook, Alex Short. You can also find me on myanimelist.net if you're an anime fan and you want to add me as a friend there. Only in that case, my name there is Shadow Alex. You noticing a trend here? I hope you do.
Funny thing. Funniest thing about that. Although at some point we do need to actually create a Twitter about like the official X-Files representative or official Xenomorph correspondent, something like that, because you do enough of that for us. Stephen Romney of Romney's Reviews. If people want to get a hold of you to not only see the wonderful content that your channel provides, which is, I mean, you provide movie reviews, you provide anime reviews, you provide TV reviews, as well as interesting discussions through poetry on particular movies. And in fact, you rope in your fellow panelists to do the exact same thing, and then we fail horribly. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, when Google and Firefox are not conspiring to make my life a living hell, you can always find me on YouTube at youtube.com/StudioGhostUtah. Yes, I've managed to finally change the URL because Google finally let me, so it's youtube.com/C/StudioGhostUtah. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/RomneysReviews. No apostrophe because, well, URLs don't like punctuation, and I am also on Twitter at Romney Reviews. So if you want to see all the political stuff that I like to throw up, which is namely a bunch of petitions and various articles, well, you can go to Twitter and follow me at Romney Reviews. And for this week's iteration of Romney's Reading Club, I'm recommending Ballad of a Shinigami Volume 1, available from Yen Press by Keisuke Hasegawa. It was actually the first light novel I ever actually read. It's a nice collection of short stories about a mysterious Shinigami and the various happenings therein. It's not very action-packed. It's much more like heartfelt character drama. I really enjoyed it, and so that's my recommendation is Ballad of a Shinigami, subtitled Momo, the God Girl of Death, Volume 1 by Keisuke Hasegawa. It's available from Yen Press.
See, I'm glad you brought up the term of death and Shinigamis, because I actually forgot to do this at the beginning of the podcast, so I'm going to do it now. I have a bone to pick with you and Alex, Romney. Because right after this podcast, so I'm going to set the scene really quick here before I do my outros here. Last week, we just so happened to be talking about a new Pee-wee movie that was happening. And Romney, being the snarky person that he is, decided to bring up that Guillermo del Toro should direct a Pee-wee movie.
No, it was Guillermo del Toro and Hideo Kojima making
together,
a Pee-wee's Big Adventure video game.
And because of this, well, it's not how that happened. I literally, it was like one of those few times, I have like an adrenaline rush after I get a podcast done. This is one of those few times where I actually went to bed and I dreamt about the dude from Pan's Labyrinth with the eyes on his hands in Pee-wee's Playhouse. So thank you, Romney!
Wow.
I literally woke up. I'm not a guy that like lurches out of bed or anything like that. I jolted up, and the first thing that came out, oh my gosh, that was so. Fuck you, Romney! That was literally my reaction, and it was loud enough to wake up my baby girl. So I felt bad about that. But all right, with that said, follow up. I'm sure you guys will appreciate that. If people want to get a hold of me directly, you can do so at my Twitter handle, which is @Drac2326. That is usually where I leave my kind of political viewpoints. My political viewpoints mainly stem from my personal viewpoints and all that stuff, and also my feedback on the stories. That happens too. Occasionally, I'm an old guy. I'm an old fart, as many people like to point out to me, and so it's not like I can use the tweeters that well. So that's one way to get a hold of me. You can also go to my channel and leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This is where Geek News is hosted, so you can feel free to show your support for the podcast there. And then also, I do tons of other content. I just barely branched into video game reviews. The most recent review that I put up is for Firewatch, so you guys can appreciate that on PS4. Yes, I know there is a PC and Mac version. I was not aware of it when I wrote the review. I apologize. But yes, there is a PC and Mac version, and I am so happy there is. I also do Let's Plays, Final Fantasy games, as well as modern games with my wife, Andrea. And I also do live streams every Monday. And it can be usually a random game. If there's popular consensus that I will do more. For example, I'm doing a Let's Play of Undertale. So you guys can appreciate that because that's going to start up on Monday again. And also, because I don't plug this enough, apparently, people didn't know this, but I actually do a Let's Play channel with the Shadow Blazer, and that is at youtube.com/DrakenShadow, and we have over 40 Let's Plays that are completed and in the books, and we are currently working on Sonic Generations, Phantasy Star 4, End of the Millennium, and Banjo-Tooie. So you guys can look forward to that. If you want to get a hold of the show directly, there are 3 ways to do it. One is through our Twitter, which is at geekynro, and you can leave up to the minute, or you can get up to the minute information when we're going live. You can leave your stories there. You can leave your feedback there. I'm really trying to make it work so that we can do some kind of a chat room, so you guys can leave your feedback on the stories live, and we can react to it. But that's one way to do it. You can also go to Facebook and look up Geek News Reviews and Opinions and like it, and you'll get up-to-the-minute information where we're going live or any other specific events that we will have going on that particular week. And also, you can go to geekyweek@gmail.com, and that's the best place to leave your listener suggestions for stories, for feedback, all that fun stuff. And also leave your feedback because occasionally I do piss you off or I inspire you, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Speaking of pissing people off, I just realized there's a correction I have to make to the Romney's Reading Club. It's actually through 7 Seas Entertainment, not Yen Press. I apologize. I realized I should probably make that correction before people start to try to kill me.
Okay. All right. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this evening. I hope you guys have enjoyed yet another wonderful podcast. And again, we do this every Saturday night. However, next weekend we will not be. And the reason that we are not going to be doing this, so you guys get the information ahead of schedule, is we're going to be getting together because there is a specific movie that's coming out to select theaters, and it just so happens to be coming to our neck of the woods. And so
I hate to say it, but don't count on it just yet because I still haven't been able to get tickets.
We'll make it work. We'll make it work because I'm also helping you out with that too. But we are planning on getting together. If we get together for this, then it just didn't work out, but that's the way it goes. But right now, we are planning for that specific event, and if you don't see a podcast up at 10 o'clock next weekend, that is why. And the video will hopefully be up by then. But in the meantime, for me, for Brenton, for Alex, and for Romney, and also for Aldo, who can be reached at Board Thresh, we will see you guys next time for even more geek news, reviews, and opinions.